But I'm glad that you were there.
Good evening, and welcome to the Wednesday, December 5th meeting of the Chappaqua Central School District Board of Education. We've been in executive session seeking legal advice and contractual advice since 6:35 this evening. Do I have a motion to bring us into public session?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Our agenda's going to change a little bit.
Pledge allegiance.
We're going to, hold on. We'll do the Pledge of Allegiance first, and we're going to have a moment of silence since today's the day of national mourning. So, Jane?
I pledge allegiance to the
flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'm speaking for the microphone. Oh, Carter.
Thank you.
What were you doing?
Okay, so the other thing I'd like to do is we're going to change the agenda a little bit. We're going to have the superintendent's report go first, and then we'll do the president's report, because I believe our superintendent is going to introduce us to some of our students tonight.
We have some esteemed speakers at our meeting this evening, so I'm so privileged to be able to introduce our Grafflin students and our faculty. And I'd like to, at this time, have Principal Carol Bartlick help us begin our big presentation for the evening.
Sure, I'd be privileged and honored to do so. As one of our parents said, these kids have an expiration date, so we're going to move on quickly. But I'm really proud and excited to introduce Andrea Hebert tonight. She's a kindergarten teacher, and Marina Comblow, fourth grade teacher. We're going to talk about some really cool initiatives that they're working on in their classrooms this year. They're participating in learning groups with other colleagues studying the make writing process with Angela Stockman and personalized learning. So I'm going to start with Andrea just giving you a quick overview about what make writing and the writing process looks like in the kindergarten classroom. Then we're going to show you a couple of video clips to set the stage, and then we will have some experts answer any questions that you have about the process.
Okay. Great. Good evening. So Make Writing is a process where students engage with building materials such as math manipulatives, Legos, blocks, and Play-Doh to build structures before they draw and write their ideas during Writer's Workshop. This process allows our students to brainstorm in a hands-on way and apply their building and making as they transfer these builds to their writing process. And this process also gives our students a way to elaborate and add more details and have deeper conversations around their topics. And this process has been a great way for all students to have an entry point to this work in our classroom.
Thank you. So these are a few video clips that are a few seconds long each. They're not long, but I have to pop in and out of the screen, so I apologize for that.
It's because if you did a build, you could forget how you're writing, so the build can remind you.
Oh.
Can you show me on our
So basically what you saw there was Carter getting ready. It's a pre-writing strategy and building his story or pieces of his story before the actual writing process begins.
What did you do first here, Julie?
Built.
You built what?
I was in bed sick.
You were in bed sick. Okay, what did you do next for your process?
I used the alphabet strip to write I was sick.
So you used your alphabet strip tool to write I was sick. And what did you do here?
I wrote me. So I wrote J for Julie and P for pillow.
P for pillow, yep. So you drew exactly what you built there, right?
And now I can use the side.
And now what are you going to do next?
So that slide was just showing there are different tools that kids get used to using, and in that slide, Julie was using an alphabet chart for reference, and I should go back for a minute and introduce our kindergarten kids. Carter Hoppel.
Hello.
Easton Kaplow, and Julie Kadosh. Another one.
No, hello.
You're going to talk in a minute, don't worry. Here you are again. It's the Carter Show.
All right, so what did you do first here, Carter?
I built it, and this is me.
Uh-huh.
That's Rusty, and this is my Thanksgiving stuff.
Okay. And what did you do after you made your build?
I draw
How did your build help you draw?
because it helps me remember what I did.
What you did over the weekend?
This is one of our students who's not here, Marbella, talking about the process.
She was going to be here, but she wasn't here. Me and then my brother, and then I did this.
And how did the building and the making help your writing?
To remember how it went.
To remember how the story went? Great.
And then the last one.
Next, I'm gonna have to do sound out the words.
You're going to sound out the words next? To show and tell, like a brave speller? Okay. Can't wait to see the finished product.
So now we'd like to give you the opportunity to ask our kindergarten writing experts about the process, and they've talked about it with their teacher, and they have a couple of comments, but if you have any questions you wanted to ask them first, we'd be happy to entertain them. Or do you guys want to just give your comments first? It's up to you.
Why don't we hear everyone's comments first?
Okay.
Wait, what did I say again?
Tell us how the making and building helps you as a writer.
The build helps me remember what I was drawing.
Great.
I like to use the sticks and also the Play-Doh.
Why do you like to use this?
Because when you get the Play-Doh and get the sticks, you can make it so it doesn't tip over from the Play-Doh and it sticks. I use an alphabet strip because it helps me write the correct letters and sound out the words.
Thank you.
Yeah. Does anybody have any questions about make writing for our kindergarten students and how they use it as a pre-writing strategy to start their story writing?
Sure, I have a question. First, I want to say I think you guys are so great. Thank you for being here, and I love to see the video. I want to know if using the building made the assignment more fun.
Yes.
Okay, good. And I want to know if the building made you think of things to write, or did you already know what you wanted to write before you built it?
Well, on weekend news, you first have to write your weekend news. Well, first you have to build it and then you write your weekend news. But usually when you draw out of your folder, it's just really just draw your own story. Like it could be about your life or it could just be like a storybook. But in our school right now, we're just drawing about our house.
Okay.
Okay, that's fantastic.
Do you have anything to add?
Does anyone want?
Does the build help you with your ideas? Yeah. Can you tell us how?
The build helps me with my ideas because so you build and then you draw in the build, remember, and it helps me remember what you're gonna draw.
Does the building help you come up with an idea for your writing?
The build, when I'm drawing, I first make the build, and sometimes when I go somewhere else, I forget what I'm drawing, but then the build helps me remember what I'm drawing.
Oh, thank you.
Get back.
That was very helpful. Thank you.
So the next slide that's up there. Oh, sorry.
I have one question. So, where do you do your building? You do that in your class, or is that with the art teacher, or is
Well, it's actually just like at your seat. You just do your build at your seat, and then like where you do your drawing too.
okay?
And where you get the build is from the bits
The bits.
and the writing.
The
Oh, the
bin.
bins, okay.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. So this slide actually just has a few pictures of Andrea's classroom and the space and how the materials are organized, and she was going to talk a little bit to that, but that was a good question. Perfect timing.
I jumped in ahead of you.
Great, it's fine. So since implementing this building into my Readers and Writers workshop, I've noticed a level of motivation and engagement around these subject areas has increased drastically. I've noticed much lower levels of frustration and, as I said earlier, multiple entry points into this material. Students are generating and applying these creative ideas to paper way more independently than in the past. And as Easton just shared with us, students are really remembering their ideas more independently and not asking for as much support in that area. So this making and building has also helped support our students in the design process work that we've been doing in the makerspace. And that has kind of transferred nicely into that area as well.
I just wanted to add on that in fourth grade, well, through the grades, we do this as well. And I know that for our fourth graders, it's the same process, and it helps them with their ideas as well. So you can see that it would help kindergartners, but it also goes up to fourth grade, right?
Yep.
And that's a great segue. So how about a nice little round of applause for our kindergarten students?
Thank you.
They're gonna try to stick it out while the fourth graders talk to you a little bit about their math curriculum and process for personalized learning. What you see on the, first let me introduce the kids, sorry. We have Miles Brensilver, Isabella Flores, Raina Gu, and Andrew DeGasperis. DeGasperis. Sorry. Do it all the time. And they're going to talk a little bit about math and this personalized learning for math. And what you see, the slide that's up there right now is called the student playlist. I'm going to let Marina Comblo, their teacher, explain a little bit about how she's been experimenting and playing with personalized learning. And I just want to give a quick shout out. This staff and teachers, there's such a strong culture of learning and risk-taking and constant improvement, growth mindset. It's the whole package, and for them to come out tonight and share this information with us, I think they feel like it's a little bit of a risk, but they also feel like it's a really supportive community in that way, and they're always trying to improve, so, for our kids. Okay, Marina.
Okay, so I just first wanted to share a little bit about where the math playlist came from. So the idea for personalized learning in math really started last year with differentiated learning. A small group of teachers, including myself, came together as a learning team. Our goal was to support students who would benefit from seeing lessons prior to a whole class lesson or to see a reteach of a whole class lesson after. After receiving the iPads, we began to see that there were many more capabilities than just pre-recorded lessons for various reasons. In my classroom, differentiated learning evolved to personalized learning with interactive virtual and in-person lessons with the math playlist. The playlist shifted instruction from teacher-directed whole class lessons to giving students voice and choice for what concepts they are learning in each chapter, when they are learning the concepts, how they are learning them, and why they are learning, by reflecting on their own needs as learners. My students are now telling me what I need to prepare for them the next session instead of the other way around. So in hearing from my students, you will see the benefits of our personalized learning in math and the math playlist.
And just like with the kindergarten kids, we took a few video clips so you could get a feel for what the classroom environment is like and what kids are doing during math. So this first video was taken when they're filling out the playlist and deciding what they're going to do for that session.
4x1 pictorial partner work because me and Miles got the video and we got all of the worksheet, so now we can do partner work for the tutorial photo.
What's happening in there, Carol? You want to just
So
tell us
that
one more
was
time?
Andrew.
Oh, Andrew, what are you saying?
Andrew's
We're having a
gonna
hard
try
time
to
hearing you.
tell you all about
Okay.
it.
Well, what are you saying right there?
So this video is about students creating the math playlist. First, students reflect on the day's session and then plan the next day's session. Students reflect on a survey or to the class and then say what lessons you need the next day and when you need it. After the lessons are set on the playlist, the students go back on their iPads and put their name wherever they want to on the playlist. There are 2 sessions for each day. Here in this video, I am saying that I understand multiplication partner work and ready to move on to division partner work.
Thanks.
Andrew?
That made it very clear.
Yeah.
Okay, the next step was to take the number of items or the dividend and write each digit into its place value.
In this video, students get a chance to learn any math concept by watching a video of Ms. Comblow. They can watch the video while they are working independently or with a partner. They can watch videos as many times as they need. They can also use it after they get a lesson in real life.
Okay.
Thanks, Isabel. So that, you probably couldn't see clearly, that's Marina on that screen that the kids are watching her reteach. That was division lesson.
This video is about when you are finished with all the lessons you can do in math activity for a challenge. For example, these 2 students are making word problems. The class can try to solve them.
This video shows one of our classmates making a video of himself doing standard division. Other students can watch it and learn from it, and it can help us understand division. It also helps the kid who made it watch him or herself so they can see how they're doing.
There's 4 left over? Yes.
This video is about 2 classmates of mine, Jake and Reese, completing a tough problem and Reese saying yes. They are showing great collaboration and perseverance, and they are working very hard on the problem together. They wouldn't be able to do this if we weren't doing the playlist. They chose to work together to support each other.
Thank you.
So I just want to add one thing. All of this is going on at the same time in the classroom. So that's what the playlist is showing, all these different activities and different students doing different things at once. So while I'm with the group, other students might be working together or independently, making videos, challenging themselves. So I just wanted to make that clear.
Now they just want to talk a little bit about their own personal experience with personalized learning for math.
Personalized learning has helped me in math. It has helped me because you get to work at your own pace. This means some kids may get the hang of it quickly, others may get the hang of it more slowly. One group may get the hang of it quickly, another group may get it the time the teacher projected, and another group may need more time. With the playlist, you can choose. If you're really ahead, you get lessons that you need, and you're with a partner or group at the same level as you. Comparing it to a whole class lesson, some kids may have already learned the lesson, other kids it's just right, and other kids don't understand it yet. Eventually, with the playlist, everybody gets to the final lesson. People get it at different paces. It makes sense to work at a just right level. It is important for the student to choose because you get more attention. Also, nobody knows what level you are better than yourself. Personalized learning helps kids know who they are as a learner and what they need. I used to get bored and distracted in whole class math lessons. Now, with personalized learning, math is one of my favorite subjects.
All right.
At the end of a session, we have a survey. The survey helps us reflect because we can think back and remember what we need. If you feel like you need more help the next day, you can redo a lesson in real life, you can work with a partner on it, and watch a video or practice by yourself. If you feel like you understand it, you can do the next lesson in real life, practice on Dreambox or a project. It is important for students to know for themselves what they need and what their level is.
I had discovered that I like to have a lesson in real life and then work in a partnership. If we need to watch the video, we can, and then possibly work alone, or in other words, independent work. I know other people who prefer to work alone on tasks. Other people like to work with partners a lot, like me. Most people think it's helpful to have a partner on the same level as them because then they could go at the same pace. We can also request lessons to the teacher, and then she'll put the lessons that we request on the chart. And math is also one of my favorite subjects.
I think personalized learning will help in other subjects because you can plan out what you think you need to learn or get better at. For example, in writing, you know where you have to go and what you are working on. If you're working on body paragraphs in writing, you can pick a lesson you need to make it better, or if you want feedback from a friend. Personalized learning gives you what you need that day instead of what you may not need at that time.
Do you guys have any questions for us?
Go ahead, Jen.
Do you find that you switch partners a lot depending on what you're interested in, and that sometimes you're partnering to learn something and then sometimes partnering with someone else to teach something?
Yes. Well, sometimes. Well, sometimes they can choose a partner, or the teacher can assign us.
How do you choose a partner? How do you know who to pick?
Right.
Well,
On the playlist.
on the playlist, we can know how to pick partners by asking them what they're on, and then we can answer them back what level we're on, and then we can work on a partnership in a partnership.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
So for example, if you look in the blue, it says partner work. So if you notice, they're blacked out. That's a list of names that are there, so they can choose within that block for a partner.
Right, and they know someone who has the same interest, and they could say, "You want to do
Right.
this as well? Let's pair up."
Exactly, because
Okay.
they're in the they decided to put themselves in that section.
Okay, at that time. Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? I have a question for the teacher.
Sure.
This is pretty. You said that you met with a small group of teachers. Is this just fourth grade, or is this cross grade level?
So I'm in a learning team right now with second grade teacher and another fourth grade teacher. And last year we wrote a traditional grant for iPads, and then it obviously went district-wide. So that's where it came
So this doesn't just start in fourth grade; it works its way up there.
Correct. And now, honestly, this playlist has made way. All the teachers are starting to learn about it and ask questions and want to learn more. They've even asked if I could do this at one of our faculty meetings, so that they can learn.
Thank you very much.
Jeff has a question.
You have a question, Jeff?
No. I was just going to ask the kindergartners, they have 50 people in the audience. They have their parents, grandparents, siblings, teachers. Is there anything else you want to tell us about school that you haven't told us? You have millions of people at home and watching on TV.
Somebody, go ahead. No.
Here's your chance to say anything you want.
On television.
What do you want to tell them about school?
Well, we also have Reader's Workshop and Star Student, but Star Student has Reader's Workshop and Writer's Workshop. So, Star Student, it's you have to read it and write it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do you know that one of the strongest indicators of students who really know what they're doing and that they've mastered something is that they're able to teach it to somebody else? And all of you tonight have taught us about the work that you're doing in your classroom. And that's really impressive to me as your superintendent. I'm sure to your principal and your teachers and to the Board of Education and to all the parents and the audience out there watching you on TV. So we're so very proud that you are a part of our school district. And I want to thank you all for coming tonight and sharing with us the good work that's happening here. So thank you. Thank you, fourth graders.
I'd just like to add that thank you families for allowing you to spend some time with us this evening because it's getting late. And we always enjoy having our students at the board meeting because we learned so much from them, as Dr. Ackerman said. So thank you very much for joining us, and thank you, families.
Thank you so much. So we'll take a 3-minute break so everyone can head out. So thank you very much.
So are we're still in the superintendent's report, or do you want to go to the president's report?
No,
And then I'll go back
we'll-
into what I'm doing.
We'll stay with superintendent's report.
All right, so I just have a few more things I'd like to address before we go into policy and regulation 7,000. And I know Jason ran back down the basketball game. We have a full house down there, but I just sent him a message and asked him to come back up. So first of all, this is our National Inclusive Schools Week, and we have so many opportunities for our kids and our faculty and our families to learn from and to celebrate each other for who we are as people. And I want to thank the PTA especially for their leadership and support in crafting an outstanding week filled with so many activities. I was able to participate in one of our events this morning at Bell, and it was just inspiring. And it coincides with our tri-state visit, and our consortium is here this week. And what that means is we are a part of a group that of other high-performing districts, and we take turns at going into each other's schools and giving feedback on different programs. And the program that we asked them to take a deep look into is our special ed program here in our district. So they're here this week engaging in that process with our faculty, administrative staff, our parents, and our students. And I want to recognize Dr. McCarthy for organizing this and leading it for our districts. It's a tremendous responsibility, and she chaired our steering committee. So I just want to recognize all of her effort. And we're looking forward to the insights that they share with us to help us be better and stronger as we seek out best practices to serve our kids. So I want to wish all of our musicians well as we move forward into our holiday concert season. I was able to attend one last night, and it was great. At this point, I want Joe to talk a little bit about what's going on here at Greeley with the STEAM, and we have some pictures just to help with the understanding, because I know there's a resolution on the agenda tonight to help us approve some emergency work to address what's going on. So Joe, if you could talk about this a little bit, we appreciate it.
Sure. So here at Greeley, we have one boiler plant, and from there, all the steam lines run out to each building. So depending on the year that the building was built, you could see how old the steam lines are. So there's a line that goes out by the cafeteria. It has a vault right in the grass area out there, and then it winds off to the main building and down to the gym. That was probably put in 1957. That steam line is leaking. What you're looking at there, that's a return line actually. So there's a feed and a return. That's probably a 3-inch return line. And there's a 10-inch feed that goes down there. They're inside of a encasing around it. So why the steam is coming out in the location it is, because it's running inside the casing. So we had a company come out to try to find exactly where that steam leak is, and it's pretty amazing. The guy came out with earphones, and he found exactly where it is, and it's right in that crosswalk in the center of it. So we mapped out the whole pipe.
Oh my God. Of course it is.
Right, the worst spot possible. We mapped out the whole line where it is, and that's where the pipe is leaking underground.
So you can see it.
So the plan of action on it is that this Sunday, because Saturday there's some testing going on here, we're going to shut the boilers down, and in the vault that's outside, I'm going to cut in a valve. Install a valve that I can shut the gym off if I want, and I'm going to seal the casing so the steam will stop coming back through the casing. And then the following Saturday, we'll come back out and we'll dig up the crosswalk on a Saturday, and I'll shut the steam to the gym. The rest of the building will have heat, and we'll replace whatever section of pipe is. And then recover everything by Monday, hopefully. I'm sure it'll be fine. And then the larger plan would be over next summer. We plan to cut the entire pipe, it's about 300 feet, and replace it, the return and feed.
So wait, what you're going to do is patch it
Replace
over
what we think
in
is
2 weekends
leaking
from
right
now?
Yeah.
So you're just going to do a patching job to
Right.
last through the year and then replace
Right.
it? Okay.
But I just want to add one thing, is that in our capital project, our plan, the $42.5 million capital project, that includes repaving all the parking lot. So that is the perfect time this coming summer that we'll dig up and
Right,
fix it
right.
all at once.
So if this steam plant is 1957, 61 years old,
The pipe, correct.
the pipes. What's the probability of more pipes going, more to the other buildings? And will they be as easy to get to, like, in the middle of the parking lot?
This is the worst because it runs through the parking lot. So,
What if something breaks in the below a building?
well, this one feeds the gym, so this is the worst. This is the worst place possible. A lot of the steam lines are running through the grass outside to each building into a pit outside of each building. So,
So I
this
guess
would
the
be
question,
worst.
could they break on the far side of that pit into the building?
I mean, down by the gym.
No, like K building or L building or,
We will start running a diagnostic on each line. That was my next plan of action to make sure. But the lines that are running to J, K, and L, they're a lot of them they're indoors and they're only running outside a small amount of.
I would think,
Footage.
I'm thinking they're probably newer also because those buildings were built.
Right.
The
It's
gymnasiums.
all by
were-
the age of.
So they built as they build the building.
Right. They
built
ran a
small.
new line.
Okay,
Yeah.
just so we have a plan of attack going forward.
Yeah. Well, there's a way to do a diagnostic on see how much of the pipe is still the thickness of it.
Mhm.
That's what we'll do.
Thanks, Joe.
Sure.
Any other questions? I just want to thank our staff. They were here on Saturday from really early in the morning till very late at night, and they were here again early on Monday trying to tackle how we're going to handle this and be open and have it be as inconvenient as convenient as it possibly could be given the situation we were dealing with. So thank you, Joe, and on behalf of us, I guess, please thank many of your staff for all their efforts. That will have to continue as we work to address this.
And I know we have one board member there. What time did you get there, Jeffrey?
Here, for the steam thing?
The steam thing? 4 in the morning?
I'm generally up at that time, but I wasn't invited.
Oh, I thought you sent pictures.
No.
That was me.
Oh.
I was here.
I'm sorry.
That
I
was
thought it was
me.
Jeffrey.
The facilities committee hasn't been included,
Yeah.
so I didn't go.
Okay.
So I know at our last meeting, one of our community members had asked for an update on the financials for the bond. And so we have been working on providing an update for the entire community on the status of our bond, on our buildings that are under construction right now. And so a lot of the financial information that she had requested, we'll put in that update when we send it out to the community.
Can we have that by, I think it's the next board meeting? January?
Oh, yeah, and that's going to go out within the next week and a half.
Okay.
We're going to send it out in one of our newsletters.
Okay, great. And then I guess if there are any questions, they can raise those at the next board meeting.
Right, or they can contact John or I will take
Okay.
care of that.
Thank you.
Okay, so I know I got a text from Jason and he's on his way up here, so I guess we could begin our policy discussion on,
Can we do my report first?
oh yeah, sure,
Thank
that's
you.
a great idea.
That's a great
Okay.
idea.
Margot, can you join us up here while we're
Okay, so the board has been working with the community and the administration on a facilities usage policy, which we're going to go over soon this evening. My second point was Joe on facilities, so we'll cut that out. We did get a letter from a community member, Joe, that I did send you and copy John and Christine and the board regarding looking high school and ADA and doors and things like that. So I think we might want to take a look at that. One thing I have heard, I've gotten some community questions regarding traffic and the opening of Chappaqua Crossing. So that's just something I think we have to keep our eyes on. I know you guys are working hard on that. We did get a letter. We've heard a lot from the community regarding, over the past couple of years, regarding moving high school start times back. And we know it's something we looked at. I know 3 years ago I was talking about that. It's more of a regional issue. We can't just unilaterally say, well, we're going to start high school at 9 o'clock because we have a lot.
regional, it's nationwide,
Right.
it's
We have a
discussed
lot of other schools around the area that might do it or might not do it. But we're starting to get some support from like Westchester Putnam School Boards Association and some advocacy groups. So they want to try and make this more regional. So if we can do that, maybe we can actually look at making a change here, especially since we wouldn't be working at this alone. And the last thing is, Vicki, you had you wanted to just talk about some advocacy also?
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to give a very quick update on advocacy priorities for the year for our region. I've been working through the Westchester Putnam School Boards Association with the LHEC. LHEC is the Lower Hudson Education Coalition. It's an advocacy group representing Westchester, Putnam, Rockland, and Dutchess County School Boards. And it also represents the Lower Hudson School Superintendents, which also represents those 4 counties. So altogether, that's 77 school districts. It is 239,000 students and approximately 1.7 million community members. So if you recall from years ago, we used to, try to address advocacy issues at district by district. Then we figured out it's better to work together, so we worked within the region, and now that region, the work within the region has expanded to these 4 counties. So just very quickly, the priorities will be addressing financial adequacy and equity through the foundation aid formula. Just a very quick background, the foundation aid formula was frozen in 2008. So right now, the formula is not running fully, and it's not even based on updated factors. So it really needs to be rejiggered and reformulated. So that's one thing. Another aspect is the regional cost index. We in Westchester are grouped with the Mid-Hudson Valley, which goes all the way up to Ulster County in terms of our regional cost, which is a factor that's calculated within the foundation aid formula. And for instance, Long Island is grouped with New York City, which represents a much higher cost of living. And our contention is that we should also be grouped with the higher cost of living as the Long Island communities are. So we lose money based on that as well. So then we have, also we're advocating for a TRS reserve fund, just to have a pension reserve fund as opposed to just an ERS fund. And this year, for instance, our TRS is going down, so it would be a great opportunity to reserve some money to smooth out the inevitable times where we know that it's going to go up and hurt us, whether in programs or our taxpayers. So that's another. And another aspect is student and school safety. We would like the state ed department to improve their approval process when it comes to safety improvements. We also want some change in the New York election law, giving school districts the option to weigh in on whether we can be polling places during primary voting day. And lastly, on the annual professional performance review, the APPR, we'd be asking for the extension of the moratorium, which looks likely that the regents will do that, and also the fact that districts should have flexibility to take into account multiple measures in order to have a valid evaluation system. So
Thank you.
that's it. That's it for now.
And then, I guess, next calendar year, as we get more information, we can have more deep discussion on this.
We can have more discussion on this, and when we have more to say about the school start time issue, I'll have more information at that time.
Thanks, Vicki. All right, thank you.
It was good timing, so thank you. And Jason has joined us, and also up here with us tonight is Margot May. She is one of our attorneys.
Did we win?
So
Lost by 2 at the buzzer.
That's too bad. Okay, so on that note, let's talk about facilities. So I want to just tell the pathway to tonight. So we have had an intermunicipal agreement with the town that is an annual agreement that expires on December 31st of each year. And that intermunicipal agreement supports the town's program as well as teams' programs that are under the town's umbrella. And that agreement allowed access to our facilities, and that was the medium at which we would reserve facilities and charge for our facility use. So last year, one of the things that we had decided to do collectively was allow programs, other than our high school and our modified teams, to use our contest field because it was now turfed and we didn't have the same issues that we would have if it was seeded. And we had shared with everybody that we would do this, and at the end of the school year, and as we began to renegotiate our intermunicipal agreement, we would talk about what kind of costs the district incurred over that period of time so that we could have that conversation with some information based on our experience. We talked about that publicly here at our meeting, and we also shared that with the town. So when we entered into our process of relooking at our intermunicipal agreement that was expiring at the end of this year, and began to talk about some of the expenses that we incurred because we are allowing teams to use our contest field, but also now because of the bleacher situation that exists at the C field, we found that we had some concerns regarding needing custodial support because of the condition of those locations. There were many times on Saturday and Sunday when our teams weren't playing and we didn't have custodial support, and we had a lot of issues with trash. We had people choosing to bring animals on our campus who weren't supposed to. They were not cleaning up after their animals, not only on our fields but also on our bleachers. And then we would come in on Monday and then have to address all of that. So obviously we had a concern. So we began to talk about those concerns, and then we were notified at the end of October that the town wished to restructure our intermunicipal agreement and, for a lack of better illustration, kind of break it into two parts. So they wanted a new intermunicipal agreement that would deal with really their programs, and then they had suggested that we work with the town teams, the sports teams, to come up with our own way of supporting them in using our facilities that didn't involve that flow through the town.
So getting rid of a middleman.
Right. I would say that would probably be accurate, right? There would be no middleman, no flow through necessary anymore. So that left us with a really short period of time to figure out how we were going to move forward because we wouldn't have a contract in place on December 31st. So we've had two meetings about this issue. We've had a work session, and we've also had a policy committee meeting. We actually had two policy committee meetings to talk about how can we use our regulations and our policy 7000 to address everybody, because it's my recommendation to this Board of Education that there's no need for us to have any kind of intermunicipal agreement. Anytime a fee structure you want to do with the town or with the teams or with whoever could be addressed through a policy. We don't need to have a contract with anybody. It doesn't benefit the district at all. What I suggest to you is we use our policy to help support our programs in our community. That way it's very clear and we're not engaging in contract negotiations with anybody. But that doesn't mean we can't reflect what our communities needs us to reflect in order to support them. We just don't do it through a contract. We do it through our policy. So that's number one. So what I have tried to do, and then with the support of the policy committee, and then we also talked to the facility committee about this as well, now we're back here, is try to draft something, this is a first draft, to try to address everybody through this policy and regulation.
So by having a policy, it allows us to be more responsive quicker to our community.
Right, and it's clear, and there's no behind-the-scenes negotiations. It's just not necessary. It doesn't benefit us at all. Okay. So my first stab at this is breaking out this contract into two groups. So the first, and I put it up there, like the abridged version up there, just so it's clear so everyone knows what we're talking about. So I'm suggesting that our town camp, our summer sports camps, our sports clinics, our tournaments, and our special events, they all follow our policy as it's currently written right now. So we have a policy, and then we have regulations that show us what fees to charge people when they want to reserve our spaces. That we should just follow that for these particular groups. And then with our community sports programs and clubs, and with 70% of our participants who reside in Chapakua Central School District, we have a system of working with them to support their reservation process. So
What I'm suggesting is that on non-school days, we have hourly custodian overtime fees, when applicable, for these groups who are using outside on the Greeley campus only. And the roaming custodian would address dogs, garbage, our bathrooms, and they would enforce the schedule. And then when we have multiple programs outside at once, they would split that custodian fee. Now, and then the second part of this, which is in darker up there, we have a structure in place already when we're using the inside of our facilities. I'm suggesting we don't change that. I'm also suggesting we have a lighting fee in place for our turf fields. That's $12 per hour. That's at cost. I'm suggesting we don't change that either. We just keep that as it is. And then we are obviously going to have to hire a part-time secretary to help support this. So I'm suggesting an administrative fee for our residents of $15 per team per season, and then $50 for non-residents per team per season. So that's the gist of the adjustments that I'm recommending to the policy in order to support the situation that we're currently finding ourselves in. Now, I'm going to ask Joe and Jason to talk a little bit about why they think this will work for us based on our experiences, since they have been working most closely with these groups, scheduling them.
I'll start by just saying that in talking with a lot of the groups, it sounds like there's a lot of systems that are in place that kind of just is a broad overview of what they have needs and everything else, but I think there's some fine tuning that we could probably help them with in terms of giving them exactly what they're looking for. Also, like Christine mentioned in the beginning, in terms of cutting out the middleman, then they have direct access to us so that, if they get canceled or something gets rescheduled on their end, it gives us that one-on-one contact to be able to go in and look for more flexibility within. What do you have, Joe?
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think it's really important that I have the custodian on the weekend out on the field to clean up and make sure the right groups are on the field. And having the extra administrative help is going to be enormous. And it'll help the groups too, because there'll be one person to funnel calls to get to us. So.
In addition to that, having the custodian on, one thing that we witnessed last night, now that we've moved our lacrosse goals onto our turf field, and they've sat there in the cold and everything, they actually left an imprint in the turf that will eventually go away once we brush it out and everything else. But having the custodian there will allow us to move those goals in between different events or whatever needs each group has in between sessions.
Also, can you two talk about your prior experiences at your previous position?
Yeah, what we're moving towards right now is in line with exactly what Joe and I have done in our previous districts, where the two of us work with all the town groups and meeting all of their individual needs and collective needs as an entire community group organization.
Absolutely.
So I had a couple thoughts on how to move forward here. So I wanted to present this before we had public comment, and then I put Warren and I put a section in the agenda where we'd actually discuss this. So maybe it would make sense to have public comment on this, and then we all stay here and we have a discussion. So I also want to share that we've got a lot of great suggestions on some adjustments we might make, but I haven't made any adjustments since our public meeting because I think those adjustments should be made in public. Okay? That way we're all being consistent.
Can I just add one thing? I just want to make sure that everyone has the same understanding regarding what resident means. Resident meaning resident of the school district, not the town.
Right.
Okay.
So do we have any public comment? Comment? If we do, according to policy 1050, can you please keep your comments to 3 minutes and be respectful? Thank you.
So just in terms of the agenda, do you want to move committee reports under public comment so we can?
We'll move committee reports, we'll get the public comment.
Okay, all right.
Please come up and announce yourself.
I'm Tom Hebert. I'm the president of the Greeley Youth Lacrosse Association. The one thing I've addressed with Jason and a couple of the board members is that last bullet on the bottom there about $15 per team per season. We've always in the past paid the town $15 per participant per year. We in lacrosse, and I think soccer is the same way, we have we essentially, our big season is the spring, but we also afford our youth the opportunity to play in the fall as
And
well.
and Tom, excuse, we shouldn't ask questions. Can you just clarify year? You mean school year or calendar year?
Calendar year.
January through
January through, lacrosse starts up in March or so, and we end the end of October, beginning of
I'm
November.
sorry. Thank you.
It's the only thing I would raise.
Thank you.
What about your thoughts on this restructuring?
I think it's great. I mean, I was at the meeting last week. I think eliminating the middleman is a great idea. It didn't work very well in the past anyway, and we fully support it. And we hope that the policy, once put into operation, will allow us to do what we've always done with our youth in lacrosse. So we support it. Just that last bullet there, I think we ought to relook at it.
Thank you very much. Are there any other members of the community who'd like to speak?
Hi, I'm Jessica Caterina. I just wanted to ask if there would be a public comment section after after you have your committee?
Yeah, so we're going to do that
Okay.
also. We just want to try and keep this separate.
Okay, thank you.
Would anyone else like to comment on facilities usage? Okay.
All right, should we do committee reports then, right?
And then,
Are we gonna
why don't we discuss this first? Were you going to discuss it?
Yeah, I thought we were. All right, so I just want to with the agenda. So yes, we're going to discuss it, but do you want to do committee reports and then public comment period and then go into approvals and ratifications and
No,
do that section of the agenda?
I'd like to do 7,000 first.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
Okay.
So I know we've each spoken to a lot of members of the community from different sports organizations, from town administration. So I guess I'd like to hear your thoughts on the policy, how it stands, and what we've heard and how we may be able to amend it.
And I had, I am also the Girly Boosters liaison and speaking with some people there and speaking with some other members that run the community sports organizations. And we did, this policy was really intended to keep these organizations in the same stead as they were, that they were paying the same fees as much as feasible unless there were extra custodial issues, et cetera, to make sure you had access, better scheduling, et cetera. And we did learn upon speaking with everyone about the $15 issue that was mentioned per season, per year. And I think a lot of us found out from various individuals that what the previous arrangement was $15 per participant per year, even if that particular sport went into 2 seasons, et cetera. So I know some of us are advocating making a change there, so to keep them where they were, since some of these organizations now that use both our fields and town fields will have to be paying that administrative fee and may have to pay still some small fee to the town if they're using an occasional town field or so. So I know that, I would be in favor, I think other people are as well, of making that change to it, to have it per team per year as opposed to per season.
So if I hear Jane correctly, admin fee for resident participation of $15 per program per year.
Right, yes.
Is everyone okay if we make that adjustment?
Yeah, I would be fine with that, and I would concur with what Jane just said. I would also like to add that I know that we're trying to deal with this issue very quickly because it was something that was presented to us at this time, in the middle of the year. And so in order to accommodate these groups, I think we have to come to an arrangement pretty quickly. But I also think that in the way that Mr. Hebert had a chance to come and talk to us about the administrative fee, I would also like to give a chance to all of the other groups to give us their feedback in a more organized way. I know we've had a lot of ad hoc individual discussions, but I would like to see everyone have the opportunity to sort of come to the table at the same time. And so I'd like to see maybe after we do the first reading of the policy, but before we pass the policy at the second reading, to give an opportunity to maybe have a public forum so that all the members of the group could come and give us feedback so that we could have a better sort of interactive
So more of a give and take.
discussion, more of a give and take, so that we can get as much feedback as possible before we pass the policy. Because I'm all for accommodating these groups. These are less than ideal circumstances. But we want to do what's best for the community. And so I'd like to hear from everyone. And it might be good for everyone to hear from each other so that we could come up with so that we could have the fullest amount of information that we can and have the best outcome. And also, like I've said to some of you, I think that this is a work in progress because we're working very quickly.
Right. So I'm not sure about everyone's calendar schedule, but maybe, I know we've asked for this, maybe we can have a forum next Wednesday, same time, same place. I don't know, we'll see if we can do that and communicate to the groups.
Right, one way or the other. I'd like to give the opportunity to do that prior to adopting
Final
the
passage.
policy.
Final, second
Right.
reading and adoption, okay?
I'd like the same. Yeah, I will set up a forum, and
Okay.
I'll set it up for next week at 7:30 here. And we'll reach out to everyone that we sent the policy adjustment to who would be impacted by the policy, so that's not an
Is
issue.
this a forum, a work session, or a board meeting, or what is it?
It's a public forum, which means you'd be able to be there, all of you could go as long as I noticed it correctly, we just wouldn't be making any decisions.
So the board cannot take action at this meeting?
Right.
So if we get all positive feedback, we gotta wait for a whole other meeting? Why don't we just schedule a board meeting?
We could do that?
I would like the opportunity to think about, we don't know what feedback we're going to get.
So we could.
And I don't see, the point to me, the point of it is to get feedback from people. So hear their opinions, take it in, and then have some time to consider and take action at a regularly scheduled board meeting. I mean, we can make it a board meeting. I guess we'd have the option of doing it, but I would prefer to not act precipitously. And, just the purpose is to get feedback.
So how long do you think we would need, Vicki? I mean, based on, if we have say we have a forum on next Wednesday, the 12th. That gives us and everyone else a chance to get here.
Well, we've each spoken to different people, and so this would give us the opportunity to hear from everyone, for each of us to hear from everyone.
What is it, do we have any deadline to pass this thing?
Yes.
Thank you.
The
What is
deadline is December 31st, 2018. I have no mechanism to schedule all the rec teams after that.
So I'm looking at my calendar. We have, after the 12th,
We're bumping up against
well, we're
the
running again.
deadline.
Right, so maybe the 18th and 19th the following week, that would give us each some time to think about it. And then we could have a board meeting, and it could be a short board meeting, second reading, and either adopt or not adopt the policy or make some adjustments. Again, I don't know what everyone's calendar looks like, but
We can
Wait a minute, so if we schedule this as a board meeting, then we wouldn't have to meet a second time, is that, maybe I missed the point of that?
Yes, that's what I was
Oh,
saying.
okay.
We're not obligated to vote, but if it appears that there's an agreement on it, we can vote. We may vote.
Okay, I'm sorry, I misunderstood, so
can we,
I don't have a problem with that.
Is it possible then to still have the forum as part of or prior to regularly scheduled board meetings so that we could, right? So
or
if
if I
we-
guess as long
The
as you're
next
Jeffrey-
regularly scheduled board meeting is after the first of the year.
Yes.
Right. So could we have, can we have a forum and
Then a
suspend-
special meeting?
Well, suspend our policy that allows 3 minutes of discussion and have a more of a discussion? Or do we have a forum and then close the forum and then have
A special meeting?
We'll have a board
I'm
meeting.
looking at Margot.
Yes,
Yes, what?
you can do it either.
It's on, it's just on.
You can have either, it would be a regular meeting or a special meeting.
It would be a special meeting because
Okay.
our next regular meeting's in January.
Okay, then you would call a special meeting, and you can have a community forum prior to the meeting, or you can have a board meeting, a special board meeting, just for this purpose, to discuss. And yes, you could either suspend the rules, or you can have, or the community forum first.
Okay, great.
It's like you can have a public hearing prior to a board meeting or within the context of a board meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
I would vote for doing it that way, so that we
Doing what way? How, suspending
to
the
do
rule?
or to have a form followed by a meeting.
Okay.
I would do that too. A forum followed by a
Holly?
a meeting.
Yeah, I'd like a forum followed by a meeting.
Jeffrey?
I don't care how we do it, as long as we do it next week.
Okay.
Is there any other feedback, other than that one adjustment, is there any other feedback we need to know, the administration right now, that you're getting from people that we need to be thinking
Just about custodial fees and some clarity, perhaps, whether, I know I see here that it just talks about the Greeley campus, but also whether, will there be someone on duty all the time, or it's as required in terms of what those additional fees will be?
So, the way that we have this structure is that if we have people using the Greeley campus,
Right.
there will be one person on duty for the entire district, but they will be housed at Greeley.
Okay.
So they'll be addressing what's happening here, but
On a
the
particular
other
day.
teams will be able to access that person, because what we're thinking is we'll give a district cell phone to this person. So if you're on our fields that day and you need support, whether you're at Seven Bridges or West Orchard or here, you'll have someone from the district that you can call to get support from.
So that would be 10 hours probably.
It would be from the time it starts until the time that the field
But I
is
think
done.
one thing that we need to clarify is that if I have a team I schedule to play at Seven Bridges, do I also have to pay the custodial
Right,
fee?
that's my
Right,
question.
and the answer
No.
to that is no.
No, she said early on, it's only for the
Right,
Greeley
it's
campus.
we're only gonna have that person on if Greeley is open that day, because that's where we're having the issues.
Okay.
So could we bookend that maybe? Have the person there in the morning to set everything up, and then have the person at the end to clean up if necessary,
So, the,
and then have their cell phone in case there's an issue?
the way the contract is written, if we have someone come in, they come in for 3 hours. So let's say you want to change the structure of this and not have someone here for every hour teams are scheduled, then probably the next step in this would be to have someone come for the last 3 hours of the day, and then have the teams that use the field that particular day split that cost.
Okay.
We probably wouldn't have someone there at the beginning of the day.
Okay.
But we would have that night person set up for the next day.
Okay.
And
Would
then-
that person, if they were only here for, say, the last 3 hours of use, would they still be the one who's on call for scheduling?
Right, that's a good question. So no, if we do not have someone here, we're not gonna have someone on call for the teams, because then we would be paying that person. So
I
that to
actually
us
would not
doesn't make
recommend
sense.
that, because if we have scheduling issues, who are they going to call? That's why it's important to have someone here on staff.
Well, that's something I'd love to hear feedback from in the forum.
Right, 'cause that could be very costly.
Right, and
That's 10 hours, that's
Yeah, that's very
$700.
Right, so what you lose if we don't have someone here is that we're not gonna get involved in your scheduling issues, right? And we're not gonna have someone here real time to help you if you need our support unlocking a goal or moving something, which is, if that's the direction we need to go in to help people save costs, then it's understandable, but we're cutting back on our services. So if you're here on Saturday and you have a conflict, you're gonna have to go to the schedule, and whoever's on the schedule, you gotta figure it out yourselves.
What's
Or we'll deal with it
happening
when we get
now?
back in on
Like,
Monday.
how is it run now? Is there someone here now under the current agreement?
No. No.
Okay.
Not on the weekend.
Jason, yeah.
So that I think that's another advantage. We're talking about this, and we have that flexibility built within, so that if we have maybe a youth soccer group and a youth lacrosse group, and all on at the same time, and maybe at different hours throughout the day, that may be a day or maybe a series of weeks where we decide, and with all the groups, that we're going to be moving a lot of things around. There's a lot of you on campus. We're going to keep somebody on for the first block from 8 to 2. But it gives us that flexibility in doing
Right.
this. But if it's, just one of the groups on throughout the day, and they say, we really aren't going to need anybody here while we're here just at the end of the day to clean up, so I think we have that flexibility to be able to decide based on what's going on
It's
campus
just
during
if
that
it's
season.
$700 a day, that's in there are 3 groups, that's $230 a person. So that's pretty expensive. The only question I have is what Mr. Hebert, Tom Hebert, brought up, was that they pay on a calendar year, not a fiscal year.
Yeah, I know.
So I'm not sure how we work that. I would think if we're going to do all the scheduling, Jason and Joe, would you rather see it all done, like everyone submits their schedule maybe in August, or they pay in August? I don't know how we can structure that.
One limitation with that is that you get some groups that maybe block out, just blanket reserving fields or usage when they really don't need that many.
It's like an
Maybe
Oklahoma land
lacrosse
grab.
is heavy in the spring, but maybe light, but they want to make sure that they can cover all the teams that they possibly could have. So there's some of the limitations by booking everything right in the beginning. It's great because we get to get everything entered, but usually we try to meet a couple months prior to the season starting. What do you think?
I guess I was just looking more from a financial point of view, from
No,
an administrative financial point of view, whether you have ASO paying, the bulk, their money in, I guess, August, and you have lacrosse paying in January. Does it make sense to?
That doesn't matter. We really look at the rosters, and we have someone who administratively will take care of that.
I would suggest that because they paid for this year, obviously not charge them this year, but because we can get them to pay one time next year, that we give them, I don't know if you call it a freebie for the first 6 months, but start charging them in our fiscal year on July 1st for the following school year. So they don't change their financials. They're still paying once in the calendar year
But I
2019.
think Tom is talking about they go by calendar year, so they haven't started.
I'm trying to show you how I think we should do it to adjust to them, to our fiscal and calendar year.
Yeah, okay, we need to talk about that.
So-
Yeah,
But,
I understand.
but my argument would be, right now we have two groups. So if we're going to do that, probably is for the second group rather than the first group. The first group, we can start January 1st.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's just.
But those are ad hoc.
Right, that's a discussion. Go ahead, Jeffrey.
I have a lot of questions, actually. The policy.
Should we read through the policy and then do the questions? You just want to go through the questions so we can have our first reading?
These are questions that are going to help me determine whether I think the policy is correct.
Okay.
I don't know how you wanted to do that.
Go ahead.
I think that's all we're talking about is policy 7,000 here, right? Okay. The policy,
Jack, do you want me to pull the policy up? Because right now we're still.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. The other request I make, which is not directly relevant to 7,000, in the future, when we have policy changes, can we see a track changes version of it so that we don't have to sit here and tick and tie with previous versions? Truly, I'm challenged and it's hard for me.
Yes.
All right, if you look in the first paragraph, which is not up yet, it says, where such use of school facilities by community groups results in increased costs to maintain and operate the facilities, the school shall charge a reasonable fee to offset such costs. Failure to charge for such costs could otherwise be deemed to violate the state constitutional prohibition against gifts of public funds. Have we determined how much those costs are? That we're trying to recoup? How much?
That's why we have the fee structure. When we set up the fee structure,
The $15, the administrative fee, how much are we trying to recoup? Maybe it should be $10. Maybe it should be twice a year. I don't know. I'm trying to understand what the costs are that we are trying to recoup.
right now the administrative costs, we're trying to recoup the additional secretarial help. Right?
So that's approximately $40,000 for our share, for the share for this thing.
Fine.
Okay.
40,000.
The next question is, how many $15 are we collecting?
I can just tell you that based on my conversation with the town official, I don't have the exact amount. I was told it's between $25,000 to $35,000, but I don't know the actual amount. But when Joe talked to the town official, what he heard was how much?
Well, depending on the year, it could be 35,000, it could be more.
Look, we did, hold on, we did it, I gave everyone, Jason had done a survey of team enrollment. Everyone has those numbers. Not everyone reported, but right now, based on the numbers that we have in front of us, it looks, but if we change our structure, then this number would be different. We have 2,088 people that we would charge $15 for. Right now, that's with the minimum number of people that have turned in
their enrollment to us.
And that was without 3 groups.
But does that double? Does that
Yeah,
include
large
2 seasons, or is that 1 season?
That's including all 3 seasons.
All 3 seasons.
No. Maybe I'm asking Tom's question. Does that include billing certain groups twice a year
Yes,
for $15?
yes.
That includes billing, hold on, I have it right, everyone has this information.
I
That
looked at it and
includes
couldn't figure
billing
it out. Tell me.
Lacrosse, basketball, and Chapel Youth Club soccer twice. Because you can see in our winter season, spring season, summer season, we think that just based on, I'm assuming that the same students in the winter or the same students in the spring are the same students in the summer. I'm assuming.
My suggestion is.
I mean, have we just asked the groups?
Okay.
Yes.
My
This is what they've, wait, stop. Let's just stop right here. In front of you, you have it. It's team enrollment.
I have it.
We
Where
gave
is
to
it? What
everybody.
tab?
Well, you can tell us, Christine, you can tell us. You have it in front
Team
of you. We're
enrollment.
listening.
We're trying to do the best to get you the answers to the questions you asked for, but it's based on the self-reporting of the teams, right? So we asked them, what is your enrollment? The teams who reported that to us, we provided to you. They're listed right there. We have their.
Can you explain this chart? I have it in front of me.
Sure. Jason, go ahead. You created it.
So what we wanted to do was get roster sizes for each season. So when you're looking at it, you know, for example, somebody that has Greeley Youth Lacrosse reported that they had 195 athletes participating in the fall. They had 345 athletes participating.
Okay, so now
in
the
spring.
total number down here, 2088,
Yes.
does that double count that? Or does it count both the 195 and the
includes-
345, or is it just the
It's broken
345?
down by season, so you had 894 total in the fall, 315 in the winter, 879 in the spring, which gives you that total of 2,088. So some of those lacrosse kids that I just spoke of were probably included in that number twice.
Right.
Now-
Yet they were only paying 1 fee.
Right. for the
If
past
you,
years.
hold on, if you now want us to find out how many students are enrolled per program per year, that's the second question we need to ask tomorrow.
Yes.
Which we certainly can and have that information ready for
You
Wednesday.
could probably figure it out. It's probably unlikely that you had students enrolled in the fall who didn't enroll in the spring. Although, you might have students who dropped out.
We could figure it out, or we could ask them. And get an
Yeah,
accurate
that's what I'm
number.
saying.
Right,
We'll
right.
send out a new survey tomorrow and say, now we need to know how many students are enrolled in your program per year. So that's the new survey. We already have the structure of it, so we just need to push it out. We can do that
Okay.
tomorrow.
Going back to the previous thing about having to recoup the additional fees, does that include the additional, when we're trying to recoup those fees, assuming that we recoup X amount from these groups, does that include any revenues from the town in any way, shape, or form?
John, you
Or where do the town revenues fit into all this?
Okay. I wanted to just make sure we stuck to one thing at a time. So I had given you the projection that we had done if we had charged the town for the use of our facilities through the policy. Right, so that is, let me just see, where are we? Let me find the tab.
Christine, I think it's in the
It's under Q&A, right?
Yep.
All right, so there's a chart in Q&A. And then there's also a backup sheet to show you Joe's calculation. So for the town summer camps and summer sports program, we have a projected charge of $76,000 if we charge them under policy $7,000. That's if you don't make an adjustment based on their request of you to perhaps do that in the future, if they wouldn't be able to support the way that we've structured this. But as it's currently written, for them to rent our facilities as they have in the past, it would cost $76,000.
That's for a la carte.
Is that,
Yes.
is that a variable number? Meaning, is it any different than a custodial fee where it's a pass-through? Or is there any administrative fee part of that? I guess there is. $30,000 projected, is that what that is?
That is facilities use, not custodial fee.
So Joe calculated that number. Do you want to describe exactly how you calculated it?
Well, I went by our policy and what their use is, classrooms, gym, fields.
I'm trying to understand what revenues we should apply against the paragraph I read before, where it said we're increasing our costs and we have a obligation to the state constitution against gifts of public funds.
So is your question, what should we be trying to recoup? Because
Mike.
school districts, and other places I work, you're trying to recoup any type of wear and tear on the building or the field and utilities.
Right. And that's why I get that if we charge an administrative fee to these groups of X amount of dollars, right now it stands at 15, and that will bring in X amount of revenues, 15 times the number of students. We don't know yet if that revenue exceeds the $40,000 that we established earlier, that was our additional expense, or if it's below it. Now, I'm trying to understand if there's anything else in terms of revenues that we apply to that part of it so that we can determine. It may turn out that we only charge these groups $10 a season because we're not looking to make money on it.
Jeff, my suggestion is that we have a lot of unknowns right now. Even the board, at a certain point, we're talking about possibly waiving the first half year, the next semester, the fee for the second group. So my suggestion is actually go with the superintendent's recommendation, and then we run a full cycle, meaning 1920, 2019, 2020, that whole school year, and then look at it again.
We can
Because
adjust
right
the
now
policy
you don't
at that
know.
point.
You're thinking about waiving the next 6 months. You know, you have to.
We're not
we need to get
waiving
to
it. From their standpoint, they would still be paying in 2019 calendar year. They would still be paying. They would just be moving their payment from January to July or August or whatever month we charge them.
Then you're losing the revenue for the first 6 months, right? So you're not following that policy.
Oh, well then let's charge them twice.
So that's why I say,
Or half.
let us run 1 year and then see where we are.
So just ignore all these fees.
No, I'm
just
not
come up
saying
with a $15
ignoring-
random
that-
fee
that-
and
this
run it and
policy
see how it goes.
This policy, this part, the first paragraph is a direct copy from the old policy. I think it's a great policy, and I think this is our ultimate goal. But we need to go through this transition period, right?
Can we go through a transition period, Mario, without it incurring some sort of liability to a board member?
Yes.
Okay. I think those are all my questions, although I'm still not sure what the answers are. But it sounds like it doesn't matter.
Well, I think it matters. I think what we have to do is we have to find out how many students we're going to have through all these groups. I know ASA is more than we have because they're on ASO. And then I know we have to talk with the town, understand what their needs are for section 1, I guess it is. The
Okay,
town.
can I make one last statement? Whatever we end up figuring out, and I think it's a benefit to not have a middleman, but with the benefit of not having a middleman is that we have direct communication. And no matter what we figure out, to me, the most critical part of this is communication. Being able to get back to groups in a timely manner when they ask us stuff, being able to get out issues to groups in a timely manner when we have an issue. But we can hire somebody in, we could pay them whatever amount to do this. But if that hopefully that person is, the buck stops there. They have the authority to make these decisions, and they know how to communicate on a timely basis with these groups. Otherwise, we're just putting them back in the same position they had, where they had to go through long periods of time to get information and whatnot. So to me, the critical part of executing this, assuming we come up with the right price, is communication with these groups.
All right, I just need to be clear on what I'm doing to prepare for next Wednesday. So we're going to attempt to get enrollment for a program per year. Okay, Jason, you're going to work on that. Warren and I are going to meet with the town, right, to talk about the implication of the first part of this on the town, right, to see if we need to talk about making an adjustment to the policy based on their needs.
Yep.
All right.
So
We are
we
going
need to or want to?
My question is, why do we need to meet with them? If this is a policy, we have a forum, they're invited to the forum.
Yeah.
Warren and I are going to meet with the town. Yeah, we already decided to do that, so.
Then why don't we meet with the groups?
We are going to meet with the groups next week.
Via the forum.
Via forum. Right, because we have two different subsets here. All right, so we're going to post a community forum followed by a special board meeting. And we're going to start it at, is 7 p.m. okay for everybody? Next Wednesday.
Sure.
Yes?
I would say 7:30, because that's when people tend to know we're going to meet.
Okay, so 7:30 p.m. will be the community forum, and we'll post the board meeting for 8:30 p.m., but if we have to push it back, we'll just push it back. In the meantime, if anyone has any feedback, additional feedback, they should email the Board of Education prior to the meeting. And then the adjustment that I'll present next week as a starting point will be $15 per program per year.
Custodial.
Do you have a custodial adjustment you want me to make?
Well, I think we have to talk about that again.
Okay, but I won't write that on here. I'll
Okay.
just put that as a talking point. But I will make the change for $15 per program per year. I'll make that actual change.
Okay.
So some teams were paying $15 per half a year. Is that
Apparently
right?
not. That was
the
some
confusion?
information we had gotten, but we got confirmation from everyone, and Jason can say this, that we got confirmation that it was per year.
But for some,
For
so I mean, I
Well,
think
some
it should
groups only
be.
use it for part of the year.
I think it should be per year, but it seems to me that groups were being treated differently. I think we should make it the same for all the groups.
gonna be same
We should make it
That's what we are going to.
$15 per year, but it just.
Yes, we are making it
I
the
think the
same.
whole
As an
confusion is
It's an
that.
administrative fee, not a usage fee.
team. Right.
Right, okay.
Just schedule everything, get everything organized.
In the past, every group paid
Okay.
$15 to the town, as far as I can tell. It's just that some groups, like lacrosse, have multiple seasons, and some groups just play, like basketball, just has a winter season.
So they paid $15 regardless of how much they used
Yes.
the
Because it's
facility.
not usage, it's an administrative fee to have this person scheduled for that.
Okay, I
You
understand.
look at football,
I think,
and that's
I
much
think
less.
another word I heard is that actually per fiscal year. Right?
fiscal
We need-
year.
Because we
Whose
want
fiscal
to
year?
adjust it back to July 1 through June 30th. Is that
Well, that's what we were talking about before, John, when
that we
Tom
need to
brought
say
that up,
fiscal
and he
year,
pays on a,
because otherwise it will be confusing.
you pay,
Right, I was talking about what they were paying, but obviously they'll have to go by our fiscal year.
And one of the things,
Which I
one of the
didn't
issues we've always had with the IMA has been the disparity between the town's fiscal year and our fiscal year. And I mean, it seems to me if we're the only ones involved, we should get it lined up with our fiscal year.
I agree with you.
Right.
Yep. Okay.
and again, like you said before, Jeff, we might have to make some adjustments to get there the first year, so we can get everyone lined up, so it's not impacting the groups.
Okay. All right. Sounds good.
Okay, so that was the first reading, long first reading discussion. So I think we're set for next week then.
Just around committee reports now.
Yep.
So, Margot and Jason and Joe, thank you for coming.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a good
Thank
night.
you.
And I just want to thank John for helping me with all this. It's been really difficult, so.
And thank you for the community
Yeah,
for their
John.
input. Okay, do we have any committee reports to the facilities? I know you're later, but
Well, we have a report. Christine mentioned something about the, I didn't hear, are you going to report the, where we are versus the budget, John, or should we just go ahead with construction timeline? I didn't hear that.
I can do a very quick report regarding the facilities, the financial part.
Okay.
Right now, we have bid out most of our projects, and we are within the budget overall, and we still have a lot of purchases that we haven't done. For example, the so-called FFE, there's furnishing, furniture, and equipment. We can't purchase until we have all the final decisions made for at Greeley, for example, the L building and the STEAM center. So we're definitely within the budget.
but we are projecting to be in budget or under budget at this moment in time.
We'll at this point, we're projected to be under budget.
Okay,
It's great news.
that's a good thing.
And that's why.
And we will have everything done in the scope that we presented to the public.
Okay.
Okay, then there's 3 items, I believe, on the Facilities Committee report. I'm going to start with, just real quickly, we had originally been scheduled with the Town Planning Board for a public hearing yesterday, December 4th, on what we refer to as a Zouderer property, and that for various reasons, I'll leave it at that, has been moved to the 18th. So we'll know more about where we stand from a town approval standpoint on that, and then the board will have certain other obligations it has to figure out and fulfill before we can sell the property. Second, the capital bond project's timeline in terms of completion and where we stand. The 3 elementary schools have all had their global learning center to the extent we would say 99% complete. They're completed. In some cases there are some punch list items, but they are substantially, if not completely, completed. There are, as of December 1st is generally when they were saying it was going to be done. Warrenbrook actually is this Friday, but we'll pass that. If there's some infrastructure stuff, mostly I believe that is the security traps. Man traps? I don't know if that's politically correct. Is that what the infrastructure is, John?
No.
Oh.
These are smaller items. For example, I think the most obvious item is at Seven Bridges, the rock wall is falling apart. So that kind of thing, because we need to have to bid that out.
Oh, that's separate. Okay. So there are little infrastructure things that don't have necessarily a completion date, but they're punch list type items or little items that we are gallantly working towards. The Robert E. Bell middle school is probably the most complicated in terms of both of the middle schools, because Seven Bridges had an empty space where we just converted that, so it was easy to do the construction. We're being told that the Seven Bridges Steam Center will be completed on or about the first of the year, and we can take possession of it. In terms of Robert E. Bell, there's a couple of issues. There's the science classrooms, there was the bathrooms, there's the field, and there's the steam center. The completion date for the science classrooms, and that was the one we had early in the year. We had a little bit of some change orders that had to be reviewed because there were material change orders, a couple $100,000. But those classrooms are now scheduled to be completed 2 weeks from today, or the 15th. 2 weeks from today? No. Those will be done. Then the bathrooms are also completed December 15th. The field is pretty much on schedule. Oh no, it's going to be completed in terms of construction at the end of next school year, in June of 19. However, you've got to let it get seeded in and whatnot. So it's not going to be used until the spring of 2020. In terms of the steam center, the new completion date is the 31st of January. We're looking good there. As I said, Seven Bridges is the January 1st, thereabouts, 2nd. Horace Greeley, multiple projects. Competition field is obviously complete. The C field is obviously complete. K110, the SSC has given us assurances that'll be completed on December 15th. The Global Learning Center, which is commonly referred to previously as the library, will be completed on March 15th. The L building upper floor will be completed on the 1st of April Fool's Day, my patron saint holiday.
Can you go back a second? You said the guy at the Learning Center in the high school is going to be completed
March.
March? How'd that fall back 4 months?
It was originally scheduled to be concluded January 31st, and it's now going to be March 15th.
I thought it was November 30th.
Maybe that was the first change, but the
Yeah.
most recent change is from
Thanksgiving to,
yeah. I mean, I don't know exactly the timeline for all the changes, but I'm telling you now, it's not going to be ready.
The L building?
no.
No,
the
library.
The library.
What happened there, John?
Initial estimates were around Thanksgiving. I
Yeah, we
remember.
are having major issues dealing with quite a few things. For example, we have a live wire, the telephone wires, that we finally was able to get Verizon to come in this week to remove it. So, there are a lot of issues that we cannot
The
solve.
general contractor couldn't push that?
There were some issues, and especially with the phone lines, where we had literally hundreds of phone lines coming in. Some of them turned out to be live when we tested them, and it turns out that we could not just cut them off or do things, because it turns out some of them are critical to our infrastructure. So we have to go literally wire by wire, and then we have to move the wires. So that's certainly added some timeline to it, to the actual total completion. I mean, some of the other work will obviously continue to progress during that time. Where was I? Okay, K110, I said, was December 15th. The Global Learning Center was March 15th. The L building upper is April 1st. Obviously, we wouldn't necessarily start using it at that point because the class is already scheduled, but the administration and teachers could start moving into their space and have it all ready to start next academic year. The STEAM Center, I don't know if you've driven by it, but there's actually cinder block walls up, most of the walls up, not all of them. That's scheduled on time at the end of the summer, August 31st. And then we will begin the lower building, lower L, at the end of the school year. As soon as the school year ends, we'll be able to take the people who are in there out. So we'll start work on the 24th of June. And if all goes well, and I'm a little dubious of this, a couple of months later, November 30th, we'll be finished there. And then just as a report from the public library, they've begun their work, and they're still estimating at this point that all projects will be completed in April. April 1st. I'm not 100% sure about that. Then it comes to the last thing was we've been tasked with reviewing some requests by the community in terms of reviewing the cooling, air conditioning of our buildings. And Holly, do you want to do that?
Yes, so we have a preliminary recommendation to the board based on some of the information we've received from the community and research that we've done. And there's basically three pieces to the recommendation. One is that we think each building should have a heat alleviation plan, and how that's defined is, TBD. The district should have guidelines for these days of excessive heat that might include when we should not have students in buildings. And the final piece is we think that there are two high-impact areas that tend to get excessively hot and would be some high-leverage areas to look into air conditioning, and that's the Greeley cafeteria and the 4th floor at Bell.
So the Facilities Committee makes those first three recommendations, and we will also continue to review those two areas to see things like cost and feasibility.
So, can you repeat number 2 again? I'm sorry, I missed.
That there's some type of guidelines district-wide for the excessive heat days of how we evaluate if students should be in the buildings or not. And
I mean, for instance, if the building is over, I'm making up a number here, but over 100 degrees, we would dismiss, or we put them somewhere else, or something like that.
So do we
Or
have-
we have a plan to move them
So we
into
have a
some
plan,
other...
we have a plan, not just a cancel
Right.
school.
Not just an ad hoc, what are we going to do today type thing.
Okay.
And number one, when you say heat alleviation, did you discuss options for that?
no, and I think that that would be left to the superintendent and the building administrators to determine what that is. But I think it might be what are the cooled spaces in the building and how do they rotate and what triggers that need.
I mean, short of air conditioning every single space You mean move students to cooler areas once,
Yeah,
once they're areas, so some sort of
how they manage
action
it.
plan.
Exactly.
Including, do we have fans and, in a storage room that we pull out? Or do we put everybody into some air conditioned area or some cooler area, like a basement area, which is cooler type thing? But I have a plan for what to do.
Okay, so we can certainly develop heat index plans and guidelines for each building, not a problem. It'll take a little bit of time, but we'll have it done before the summer, right? When it starts to get hot. The question I have, are you recommending we look at building a budget around possibly putting air conditioning in the fourth floor Bell and Greeley?
We're recommending that the facilities committee be charged with taking that deeper look into the costs and feasibility.
So charge.
Right, we're not saying to build it into your budget for this next coming.
Okay, that's what we need.
We're saying we
That's
don't
fine.
know, but we think it's certainly something that should be considered.
Okay.
We did determine that it was fiscally unfeasible to air conditioning the entire district.
I just want to add one point is that when we looked at the whole picture, remember all the new spaces that we have in the bond, the $42.5 million bond, other than the 8 science classrooms, all of them are being air conditioned.
Right, and I think that that's an important piece
It's a major
for
factor.
So when we
this
talk about a heat
alleviation.
plan, like if you're at Bell, you may move people into the.
Global Learning Center,
right,
you mean?
and
So
that kind of thing.
L building is going to be air conditioned?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Also, how did you determine that fourth floor Bell and the Greeley cafeteria were the hottest places? So I had heard that the Grafflin cafetorium was also very hot. I'm just curious, is it just a temperature measure that had been taken by the facilities director at some point? How was that
From
determined?
my standpoint, that was determined by the recommendations from the administration.
That's correct. I met with the principals and we discussed that together as a group. That included every administrator from every different building, and we identified those 2 areas as simply unbearable at times.
So I think that's a great.
I mean, I'm sorry, was that done objectively, or did they actually take measurements, or did they just, was that just?
I think it was done based
An
on their
anecdote.
experiences during that heat wave that we had in September.
So I think that was a great first step. I think it gives us a sort of structured workaround. But if you want, not if you want, let's take that charge and go forward and see what we can do from a financial point of view. Also, could I ask, Holly, could you just put that in a quick note and send that to everyone?
Absolutely.
Thank you. All right. We talked about facilities, we talked about.
The other facilities things we need to do is take that light that's now shining in our eyes and move it.
Which light?
There's a new LED light that's just.
Yeah, that's very
It's burning
difficult
my retina.
to look
can't
at,
see it.
yeah.
Where we can just get blocked off depending where you sit, so that's the
Not-
problem.
oh,
Yeah,
there it
that
is.
is problematic.
Thank you for, now we're gonna see that all the time.
Okay.
It's the North Star.
Come over here, John, I'll show you later.
I didn't see it until you mentioned
Well,
it.
actually, you're going to be blind by the end of the night, so it's okay.
Yeah, you will.
All right,
You mean
so
the outside?
communications committee?
Are you talking about the outside?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the construction site. That's where they have all the equipment. They're
Okay,
doing the
well, would you
outdoor.
ask them just to tilt the light a little bit?
Or they're not constructing tonight, are they?
Outbuilding.
Well,
doing
you know,
work
maybe
tonight?
we
At night, that's what
can,
they
we
do.
could have some sort of makeshift shade, even if it's a piece of paper,
Yeah.
on those 2 windows there. That would be
Okay.
helpful.
That's
Right,
easy.
you're getting that.
I'm getting.
I have a completely different suggestion. I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about it, but you might want to think about just turning the table. So you face the screen and have the audience face this way, restructuring how you sit in this room completely.
I'll leave that up to the logistics expert, Mr. Chow.
Okay.
Well,
Think
we
about
could
it.
try it one day and see how
I
it
have a
works.
construction paper idea.
Okay.
So,
Putting paper.
communications,
That way you're not.
We haven't, no, there hasn't been a meeting since last meeting.
we haven't any audit. Policy, we've got a lot of policy going on. Anyone else have any updates? Okay. We said we'd have another public comment period since we just wanted to discuss policy 7000. So if anyone would like to make a comment now? And before the comment period starts, I'd just like to say, I think the El Defo initiative has been great.
Oh,
I've heard wonderful things about that.
Here she is, our leader.
Thank you very much. Jessica Catherine, Chappaqua PTI. I wanted to start off by thanking the board and particularly the facilities division for looking into a heat alleviation plan. This is very important to the PTA and to the family, so we're very excited about this. But I will say, much like Vicki, I am concerned about the cafeterias in the elementary schools in particular. Cafeterias in our elementary schools tend to be isolated in the centers of buildings and have no real opportunity for ventilation. Also, the global learning centers, of course, are air conditioned, but the cafeterias in all of the elementary schools have long slots of time when they are not being utilized for lunch, which gives the schools also an opportunity to use them if they are then cooled to a reasonable degree, that they can be used to feed into the alleviation plan, so that it's not always the responsibility and the duty of the librarian to take on the full weight of heat alleviation. So that's on that. And then on the other issue I wanted to bring up, because you are talking about working on L building and some of the buildings within Greeley now, I know that a parent has reached out to you about having automatic doors added to the school to allow children with disabilities or children who are not mobile even temporarily to get in and out. I think it's important when you think about automatic doors is to not necessarily assume that parents are talking about every door. There are lots of doors which automatic doors are not particularly necessary, but the one place where I would argue that they are necessary are bathrooms. As children get older, and as we as a district look to support their independence and their sense of dignity, a high school student being able to get in and out of a bathroom effectively and easily by themselves would go a long way to promoting that. And I don't think that we need to look at every bathroom. I think that it's probably unrealistic at this stage, but if we could look at our high school buildings, especially the bathrooms that are not completed at this stage, and think about setting up one boys and one girls bathroom on each floor and each wing, just to see if it's something that would work and help alleviate stress and concern amongst our students. So that is something, as we look at these new spaces coming online, we want to make them as flexible and useful in the long range as possible. I think that might be something to look at before they're built.
Okay.
So thank you.
Thanks, Jessica.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments by the community? Okay, we're closing comment section. So the only thing I would like to say about that, as I mentioned earlier in the president's report, we got that note from the parent, and I sent it out. I asked, if Dr. Ackerman and Joe Bermundo could start taking a look at the idea of automatic doors or whatever kind of help we can use there, and we'll
Look into it.
I guess we can use what Jessica's suggestions were and look at that and see if we can do something.
Yeah, I think that's a great suggestion. So, yeah.
Should we bring that to the facilities committee?
Well, I asked the facilities committee, in my note, I asked the facilities committee and Joe Bermundo to take a look
Okay,
at that, because
all
he's
right.
part of the facilities committee.
So that's where we already started doing some research, so
Right,
we'll bring it
so-
there the next meeting.
So that was very timely. Can I have a motion to approve 3.1, accept minutes of November 14th, 2018 board meeting?
Also move 3.1.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
3.2, we already spoke about, so we had our first reading on policy, school district facilities, use of school district facilities. 3.3, policy 2070, duties of the district treasurer, first reading.
So we were looking, well, as you all know, amongst us at this table, our treasurer, who's been here many years, Blanche, she's retiring at the end of the school year. So we were looking at restructuring the duties of that position in order to attract the most qualified candidate to come to our district. So we have some adjustments in here, so as we're going through the process of hiring, we'd be able to attract experienced people to this position.
Okay. Are there any questions regarding this policy that we need more clarification on for our second reading? Okay. So policy, we'll go to second reading, 3.3. 3.4, policy 2000, Board of Education,
Okay.
principles and organization, first reading.
So this one is on the adjustments on the primarily second page at the top, and it talks about how a board member can place an item on the agenda. So I know that the board had asked to have a discussion about that. So this is a draft that the policy committee came up with to make the language more clear.
Even though I looked at this, I still have a revision that I can suggest, but I'll let everyone else give any feedback.
I'm trying to understand what the
Should we
word
go?
is. You don't-
Oh, I'm sorry. Should
Go
we
ahead,
just
go
go
ahead.
kind of go over,
Yeah.
well, I'll go over what
Go
my
ahead.
understanding is, and then we could talk. So, basically, starting from the very last last sentence in the first page. So the agenda is basically prepared by the superintendent and the board president. So any board member can request to have a matter placed on the agenda, but has to be in writing, and it has to copy all the board members. And that request should be submitted at least 5 days prior to the meeting. So in any event, it's got to be submitted prior to the preparation of the agenda. So it says here the president may add the item to the agenda. So that means that the president has discretion. President doesn't have to add it. So if the president does not add it, then the item is discussed at the next board meeting. And then the board would vote on whether the item would be placed on the agenda for the next meeting. That's basically what that says. I think the second to last sentence has the same issue that the original wording had, which is kind of confusing, where it says the president shall have the right, as other members of the board, to offer resolutions. I just think it should say all members of the board shall have the right to offer resolutions, because I think that's the intent. But it's just unclear wording, so we didn't correct that. So basically, it's at the president's discretion, and if the president decides not to put the item on the agenda, then the board takes a vote. Yes or no, and if it's yes, then the item is put on the agenda at the following meeting. Is that your understanding, Warren?
Yeah, no, I
Right,
think
that's
it's very
exactly
clear.
what it is.
It's very clear.
Okay.
I like the change of all members shall have a right, not
Yeah.
just.
No,
Well, I think that's the intent, but the language is unclear.
Actually, I thought, I was interpreting the intent of that to say that just because the president is running the meeting, they still have the right to participate in all of the conversations and still vote. So
They always have the right to participate.
right, but as far as the intent, I don't think I didn't read it to just say offering resolutions. I was taking it to make sure that it was clear that the president was expected.
Didn't lose their opportunity, right. I think we're
Well,
okay
maybe
with
that is the intent. I don't know if we'll ever know. But it's
Might be,
basically,
but why
It doesn't-
wouldn't they lose their right?
Because
Like, that's what
they set the
says
agenda,
strange.
so they don't really lose their right.
It was asked
But-
in
but
at least
there-
one
but
training
nowhere
I've been
else-
in, which is why I think it's the intent.
that's possible, but nowhere else does it say that members of the board can offer resolutions at a meeting. So I think that's the only place it says that. So we should make the language clear that all members can do
Right.
that.
Does anyone have a concern with this conceptually? They want to just change the entire concept? or
No,
is
I'm
there-
fine with it.
I'm fine with the overall concept.
I actually think this contradict each other, because the first part is saying that if an agenda item is not included, you can discuss at a meeting and then be placed on the next meeting. But the next sentence, what Vicky is saying, and
You can always make a resolution and short circuit
you can
that
do
process.
it all together and you can just vote it at that meeting.
Well, I don't know, you're not voting on the
No,
item,
you-
you're voting on whether you want to put that item
No,
on the
he's
agenda
saying-
or not. Right.
All members can
If I made a
offer-
resolution at a meeting, John, I'd move to put something on the agenda.
You could do
Assuming it got
immediately.
seconded, then there would either be a vote yes or no. Then it doesn't mean anything, then we may or may not vote on the item itself.
It goes to the next meeting to go on the agenda, then you might vote
Or
yes
you
or
may
no.
vote, I may move it on, like, you can move to put something on the agenda at the current meeting.
That's what he's saying. It says that it's sort of that second thing would bypass that
Mhm.
bumping it to the next
That's right.
meeting.
So you might as well just bring it to this meeting, talk about it, rather than do the 5 days prior, send a notice to the president.
Oh, I like the notice though.
I like the notice
I
too,
think
otherwise
that's
it
good
can,
to add
otherwise
to
it
the
can get
agenda.
out of
Then it's
control.
like a
and-
surprise
They
kind of thing.
contradict each
Right,
other.
we don't want surprises.
Right.
We don't want somebody to say, you know what, I want to change it.
But then you give the second option, right?
Right, that's true.
And I'm just trying to understand, under what circumstances would the president decide to or not to put something on the agenda?
I don't think we can determine that now.
Right.
That's a case-by-case
So just, if they
scenario.
have just the absolute authority randomly to decide at their own whim.
Well, that's
Yes,
what they have right
basically,
now.
that's their,
That's the way it
it's
is
at
right
their
now.
discretion.
No, that's the way it's written down, that's why we're trying.
Right, so
the
that's
whole
why I
reason
want,
I'm
that's
saying
why I
we should
want,
change
that's why I
that.
want to change it, so if someone wants something put on the agenda, the president has the right to say, yes, we'll put this on the agenda. And if the board really feels that that should be on the agenda, then they can sort of veto the president's right to keep it off the agenda.
Wait, I don't understand the point.
Override the
What-
veto.
what is the
Override,
point?
override. So
What
if
is
you
the
want to put
ques-
something
what
on
is
the
the question
agenda,
on the
Vic,
table now?
you want
I
to
don't
put something on the
understand.
agenda, Vicky, and you write me and say,
Mhm.
I want to put on the agenda that we can't drink still water, you have to drink sparkling water. I say, that's not the right thing to do. I'm not putting that on the agenda. But
Then at the
at the
meeting.
meeting, you can say, I really like sparkling water, not still water. And 3 people say, yeah, we want to talk about this next meeting and make, and pass a resolution. Then you could override the president saying, I don't think that's a great idea.
All right. Couldn't you achieve the same thing by just making that motion in the meeting?
Because-
Yes, that's what John is saying.
That's what
Right.
John's saying.
But then,
That's what the
as Jane said, that allows for surprises. I don't think we want to try and have
So
surprises.
do we
No,
want to
wait, it
remove
doesn't.
that
It's saying
language?
you could do
Wait.
both.
Yeah.
It's allowing you to do both.
There's a way to put it on the agenda immediately, right? And then there's a way to get it on the next agenda if it's not put on the agenda immediately. That's what this does. You could get it on immediately if the president says yes. If you can't get it on immediately, you're going to have to wait to the next meeting, but you can talk about why you want it placed on the next agenda, and then everyone has to vote on it. I
You could
think this is
also, by
clear.
the way, decide not to give it to the president 5 days in advance and make a motion at the meeting.
So you can offer the
Based on this.
resolution at the meeting.
Yes.
Yes.
That right is
So do
always
we
there,
want, do we want
apparently.
to, we always had that
Never
right
stated
there,
what it's
so.
implied, Kevin.
So maybe now we've heard this talk, so maybe Warren, Vicky, and I can go back and try to address this.
With Margot and.
Yeah.
Okay.
And as we get ready for the second reading.
Okay.
Again, can I get a copy of the track changes
Yeah,
version?
sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
Are there any other changes on this thing?
I believe those were the only changes.
Yeah, I think I have, I'll see if I have the track document in my email and I'll send it to you. If
Those
I
were the
don't, I'll
only
get it from
changes
Margaret.
that we, that I'm
Yeah,
aware of that
okay.
we discussed.
Okay.
Yeah.
3.4.
Can we go back really quickly to policy and regulation 7,000? We have to put a number in for if an outside agency or team or whoever wants to use our field. So John, you had a, we actually have to go to the regulation. You had a number, right? It's to be determined on
Is
there.
that the one? Yeah.
Yeah.
That was
Right,
like
right.
from July. I had that circled from July of
Yeah, that
this
wasn't
year.
filled out. yeah.
Right.
So I just want to make sure we fill that out
No, I'm glad
tonight.
because I had that highlighted. Thank you.
Okay.
And I don't want to forget, so
Yes, thank you.
it's in the regulation part of this, the charges. Keep going. Yeah, okay, so John, what is your recommendation for that?
We checked down some other school districts are charging. This is for the artificial turf field. It ranges between $115, $120 to $150. So we are per hour. So we're looking at possibly maybe we'll make a recommendation for $125 an hour.
Is that per hour, John?
Per hour.
Let me add something to that. Whatever we determine it is, whatever we think is the right price, we retain the absolute decision-making whether or not to let anybody on the field.
That's correct.
Correct.
So that we don't ever have to let anybody on the field, or
Yeah,
we can
and
let anybody.
they first they have to meet all our requirements
Right.
in the policy.
Right. But then we still don't have to give them access if we don't want.
No, it's at board discretion.
So is
Well,
every,
I mean, it's because it's relevant to all the other youth groups that are pretty much looking to schedule the 2 turf fields with lights whenever it's not being used by the district.
Well, what Christine's recommendation is that this will not include the youth groups or the town.
Right.
Okay, this is just those groups.
People who come to us and ask us to rent our facilities,
Right.
as if we were a catering hall.
so is everyone okay if we use $125 an hour, or at least put it in the first
Put in
reading?
the first.
Put in the first reading,
well,
sure.
well,
All right, thank
we'll
you.
co- We'll consider that for second reading.
While we're taking a look at the regulation, the setup fee, which appears on the next page, it may be just a formatting thing, but it's not clear what that applies to, if it just applies to everything above, if it applies to everything below. So if we could just make that a little
Sure.
bit more clear.
Yes,
Where are we talking?
the setup fee for $40.
Yes, got it.
Okay, we'll get that in the table.
Okay,
All right, sorry to
that's
digress.
okay. So we're going to 3.5, policy
We're gonna
ones.
use, glasses with ice as a setup fee.
We're going to 3.5, policy 1005, public participation at board meetings, second reading and adoption.
Okay, so with this one, I think we all agreed on, I just don't want to misspeak, but I believe we all agreed on this, on the language in the back that we put in the agenda, that after the public comment period has been completed, board members may have a discussion amongst themselves regarding comments presented. The discussion tonight,
Is that the only change that's been made?
well, that's the only one we've been made, but the
Yeah.
discussion tonight is on the minutes associated with public comment, and there's not an agreement on whether that should be 3, 4, or 5 minutes. So that's what you needed to talk about tonight and hopefully approve whatever it's going to be.
Can I just say that I just don't recall the genesis of this becoming an issue again? And I just want to ask whether it is an issue.
It is to me.
Okay, so at some point we discussed that this was an issue.
I think at the
Okay, I
retreat,
just want to establish that, because I couldn't remember.
We did discuss it at the retreat, and we had discussed because there have been a couple of instances where we have voted to give someone an extra minute, and there was a discussion whether we
Okay,
should
thank you for that
continue
reminder. I was trying
that
to figure out
procedure,
why are we here again?
whether we should continue
Okay.
that procedure or perhaps lengthen.
Right,
and-
it's been a while, so.
And then we
yeah.
discussed it briefly when I had gone to the communications seminar at the in the city for the New York State School Boards Association, the pre-convention seminar.
can
There was a
you repeat
discussion
that
about
then,
that.
Jen?
Well, that just that was kind of an informal poll that I had taken around the table, and that was part of this discussion. That a lot of districts, some do 3, some do 4, some do 5. There, a lot do 3. Someone did mention that they do 5, and then there's absolutely, no extension. So I know we had discussed, do we want to change it to some other number? But if in doing so, then do we make that hard and fast so that we're not in a position to extend it? And that just came up as part of a discussion in terms of how to be the most efficient with this and also responsive at the same time to the community.
From my perspective, I'd like to see it raised up to 5 minutes with no extensions. I don't think that there's many people that actually have 5 minutes.
5 minutes is a long period of time.
It
That
is
true.
So I don't think that by adding those potential 2 minutes, we're going to be adding a lot of time to the public comment. And I think in the end, it's actually going to be shorter because we won't have to stop, vote on whether or not to take another minute, and then restart the timer.
Right.
And I also think it would be easier on our clerk over there.
Right. Sweating it out as it approaches 3 minutes to decide what we should do. Right. Because yes, go ahead, Jeff.
I support as long a time as anybody's willing to give with no additions, or 3 minutes with as many additions as we're willing to give.
I was thinking both ways. I think 3 minutes is a long time to speak without without having to repeat yourself.
I can teach you how to do that.
I also think that, I mean, we haven't had it in a while, but we've had some topics where we've had 15, 20 people here speak about the same topic. So if you look at 3 minutes times 20 people, that's an hour. It's 5 minutes times 20 people. Now you're keeping on.
But if every one of
You're
them
adding 40
asks
minutes.
for an extension of 1 or 2 minutes, then we've probably doubled the extra
But
time.
we don't have to offer that extension. I mean, if everyone's saying the same thing, they can say.
We
3
have in our
minutes.
policy already that we ask people not to repeat themselves, not to repeat what other speakers have spoken about over and over again.
So I would just say, just having sat here for, I don't know, was it 7 years? People can speak for a long
You're in
time,
your
and they
eighth year.
have. It's not that they can't, but they really do. People are passionate about what they come and talk about, and we've seen many instances where people can talk for much longer than 5 minutes, actually. And it's happened often. It hasn't happened lately, I would say, in the past few, but it really and truly, even when we've had lines all around the room with people coming to talk, people have come with very lengthy discussion points. And so we have seen that happen, and it's very likely that it would happen.
I think.
I think that if we have a series of people come and talk at the same time, if we don't give an extension, I think it would be understandable. But I think that when we give ourselves the flexibility of an extension, I think the flexibility makes people feel heard. I think it's important to try not to cut off people as much as possible. So if people are going to talk for either 3 minutes or 5 minutes, I think they will want an extension no matter how long it is. It's just human nature.
I think also that if you get to 3 minutes and the district clerk says your time's up, they have a second that they can formulate their conclusion. If you get to 5 minutes, say, sorry, sit down, you have nothing else to do. And they say, but I have 3 more points to make.
We'll give them a warning at 3 minutes.
But that's the same thing, it's a
I
stop.
think the fact that what Vicky said is actually an argument for making it 5 minutes. These people are passionate in what they say. They're members of our community. I don't quite understand, or I don't appreciate why we'd want to cut people off. Even if they're yelling at us, maybe not yelling at us, but even if they're telling us what we've done wrong. This is what we have public comment for, to let the people be heard. 5 minutes, truly, I'll speak for myself. If I have to sit here for an extra 20, 30 minutes in the evening to hear public comment, I actually would do that. I have no problem with that, because it's giving the public a chance to have their say.
I think we actually would serve the public better by having additional forums outside of these meetings.
Say that. That's
I'm okay with
how
that
I
too.
feel, so
We
that you
can
could
do that
actually
too.
converse
But
with
we always tell
people.
people to come to a public meeting, and they should. I mean,
And
there's
if you
nothing-
look at our public meeting tonight, we've got 2 publics.
No, we have much more public.
So
hearing
I
than-
would say whatever it is, whether it's 3 minutes or 5 minutes, that we offer some extension. I wouldn't say, whatever timing it is, it would be cut off, completely cut off without any kind of
I
discretion.
would not be in favor of a 5-minute with an extension. I think that we're getting
Well,
ourselves
I'm
in
not
trouble
either.
there.
So I am in favor of leaving it as is, 3 minutes with extension. But if we do go to 5 minutes, then I would still want to see an extension, but that's not my preference.
I support 5 minutes with no extensions.
Is the middle ground 4 minutes?
4 minutes,
I don't
no
think-
extension.
I don't think
Right,
we
I
With an
hadn't thought about
extension?
that.
Listen, I would hate to see you get jammed up with kids in here and they can't finish what they're saying, and we're going to be rigid about the stop.
I think the
Whether
rigidity
it's
is a
3
big
minutes, 2
problem.
minutes, 1 minute, 5 minute, 20 minutes, I think flexibility and allowing them to wrap things up is really important, because then you're going to get in the I defer my this and I defer that. But if you have the mechanism to control that situation, I think you should use it. I don't want you to create a barrier for yourself where it becomes a little, it seems like you're being rigid.
That's
especially when
exactly
you're-
right.
So
We
if
could
we're-
have a
If we're going
student.
to leave that, then I would stay where it is and allow us the flexibility to add what we have done I am in favor, like Holly said, I really would prefer to leave this as is and come up with like a monthly form, a rotating thing where there's one or two, board members sitting at the training
I'm all
station
for that.
or
I'm all for
whatever.
that.
Like a monthly thing where people have an opportunity outside of those meetings to actually have a conversation, which is a lot of times with the comment, that's what they're really looking for, is more of a dialogue, which I'm happy to engage in, and I would like that opportunity. Unfortunately, the board meeting is not the forum for that, so.
But I see that as a problematic, because if a person from the community wants to come up and have that conversation, they don't want to have the conversation with you and me. They want to have the conversation with Vicky, Jeffrey, and Holly also.
I don't necessarily think so,
I have no
but-
problems doing more meetings, and we can do that. That's a great idea, but I don't think it should be 2 board members. It's got to be the entire board.
You know what, I think sometimes it's actually easier for people, but that's just my personal opinion, and I did speak with people that have done these types of things in their town, like a rotating thing, with board members, so also maybe on a Saturday when it's easier for people, and they seem to say it was quite successful. So again, it's just a different perspective. I think sometimes, I myself, I've had, before I was a board member over the years, talked with 1 or 2 board members. I actually like those conversations.
I mean, we've done that
right.
before you.
So
But
I would like to give people the opportunity, but not to get too far off topic, because we can't do that right now.
We can. We're talking about the
No, but
policy.
I mean, we're not making a decision on that
No.
right this moment. But, in terms of if there's nothing pressing and we don't have an agreement right now, my opinion is to leave this as it is. It took us a while to get to the 3 minutes, and then we've allowed the extension. We typically give a person an additional minute to speak. It has not become an issue yet, but we know we're trying to set this up for when it does.
Right.
That's my feeling right now. I'm happy to leave it as is.
So to answer your other question, just to throw more in
Go ahead.
about forums, I think the one place where we have a lot of discussion, or a lot of more, when people want to speak longer because there's more to talk about, is during budget season. And maybe this year we talk about having a board forum during budget season.
We have those every year, and about 2 people show up, and I'm very love to see Judy as much as possible.
But I think, the PTA runs these, and maybe I think they run 2, 3 of them, John? 2? So I think I've been to a bunch. Maybe the entire board goes there and we have that discussion, or we have it here. I'm not trying to.
I'm not
but
saying
if
no
we-
to that. But I think people want to talk about other issues other than the budget.
I
that's
think
what
we
they're
can be
looking
flexible with that. I think we know when there's an issue out there in the community, we could decide to do these informal meetings, or we could just decide to, plan a general, informal session outside of the budget. And by the way, I don't know if we should talk about this amongst ourselves. I'm just going to say now, I know you mentioned Judy. I don't know if people are comfortable getting mentioned at the board table if they're not here to speak. I don't think we should refer to individuals at the board table. That's you guys could do whatever you want, but I just think it's inappropriate. I don't like to single people out like that. So I
apologize to everyone named Judy.
I would like to refrain from doing that. We don't know if people want to be singled out in this way. I'm uncomfortable with that.
Okay. So
where are we now?
So on 3.5, this is second reading.
Wait, can I say something about this? If we're going to leave it as is, then can we put a formal procedure for how we get additional time? There's nothing in here that says there's anything about additional time.
I thought it would.
Hold on a second.
Show me where that is.
I know, we've talked about that.
So we want to put a bullet in there that the Board of Education may extend.
Yes, we should
Okay.
do that.
All right, so we're not going to be adopting this. We're
So
gonna do a
it
third
would
reading.
be at our discretion.
Yep.
Well, may take a vote, because that's what we do, right? Unless
Right.
someone has a
Yes.
better
We'll-
idea.
We'll send this back to policy committee. We'll add that in
To
and
add
bring
that
it
in,
back.
that it can be at our discretion.
We'll work on the wording for that.
Yeah,
Okay,
because that's got to
so-
be very
Clear.
We'll do a third reading
So,
in
third reading
January.
on 3.5.
Okay.
Okay.
Board
3.6, board protocols, second reading and adoption. Okay. I know, Jane, you had a couple.
I don't like the title. I really don't like operational protocols policy. I don't like that, and I do think, and it also talks about the board, and then there's superintendent's roles and responsibilities. It's not addressed in the title, so I would like to change that title.
So,
I have no objection to that.
policy on protocols or something like that?
Procedures and protocols? Board procedures and protocols?
Well, we have superintendent roles and authority, so it could be just.
Board, it
just-
can be
ju-
board
just-
and superintendent, if you want to say board.
Or district protocols and policy.
It
of
should
dis-
say board and superintendent, I think, because we have board member roles and authorities, superintendent's roles and authorities, superintendent, if you want to say, I mean.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, Christine, you might have seen this in other districts, the rest of you guys too, but I think that this is the board's understanding of the superintendent's role. I don't think this is a protocol for the superintendent.
Well,
I
it
think
is.
that-
Superintendent of schools, the chief executive officer. That's pretty.
Right,
that's
so
pretty-
it's just the board's understanding of the superintendent's role as contrasted with the board's role.
As
So-
I had written, when we've seen it before, it's typically called something to the effect of, protocols and, board and superintendent roles and responsibilities, or something like that.
Have you seen other examples of that?
Yes, in
And it
some other
refers to the
districts.
superintendent?
Yes, it does. They all did.
Okay.
Listen, I
Okay,
have a
then.
feeling we're not adopting this tonight either, so.
Right, no.
We can just, if we know that we need to work on this, then we can work on
Are
this at
there
our
any
next
other?
meeting.
Are there any?
So do you want to say board and
Yeah.
superintendent?
Hold on.
I just want to finish this first.
Okay.
Board and superintendent protocols, or
We'll work
board
on
and
that.
superintendent procedures and protocols?
Protocols, that's fine.
Just so we don't have a
Right.
fourth,
I would
Okay.
be
Is that
happy
generally okay with people?
Board and superintendent procedures and protocols.
So work on
That's fine.
title.
Okay.
Jeffrey?
I continue to object that this is a policy and not simply a protocol.
Okay.
I think we're going to sit here, I just think it's inappropriate the way we're doing it. I don't think it has anything to do with democracy or anything like that. I think it's just simply, we should have board protocols, and I'm almost willing to agree that all these numbers are fine. But I think that its proper place is not in a policy.
I think the reason we have it in a policy is to ensure that there's thoughtful discussion and change to a protocol, not just somebody says, I'm going to change this protocol, and a couple people say, yeah, we'll agree with it, but no one else on the board has ever even heard that.
But there has to be then a procedure for changing
Right,
the
just make a
protocol.
procedure for changing, for adopting a protocol.
But
or
first
changing a
of all,
protocol.
And where would that go?
Just to
Discussion can be done at
establish,
any point on that.
just
But
to
where would
establish
the
what is
procedure be?
possible.
Inside the
I just want to say, just to establish what is and isn't possible. We were told by our attorney that the protocols can either be policy or they can be a standalone. And so boards decide to do one or the other. There's no right or wrong. So it's not that this cannot be a policy. That's false. We can do
I never
one-
said it couldn't be a policy.
We can do
I think it's
one or
inappropriate
the
that it's a
other.
policy.
It's appropriate to do both, and it's just up to us collectively to
Right.
choose one or the other. Either one is appropriate. It's a matter of personal preference.
Right, and I personally think it's inappropriate.
So I know that Holly, Jeff, and Jane have all said that they would feel like this doesn't fit in the policy sector, right? So then I think maybe what would make sense, Warren, Vicky, and I, if we worked on how to change protocols, because that's where the concern is, right? And that we won't
Right.
have if it's not a policy, there's not a process, so we have to put the process in the protocol.
So just for the record, and Warren, you can speak for yourself, but I felt it was best to have it as a policy because policies have a procedure. First of all, it would have a place on the record. We would have a place to find where the protocols are.
I still think we could,
I
not
think,
to interrupt, but we could put that on the website under one of our things.
That's right, but I'm just saying why I prefer it to be a policy. Because it would be an easy place to find it. We could go search for it elsewhere, but it would be with all the other policies. Secondly, policies already have a procedure for revision. So we usually have 2 readings, we do it at a board meeting, and we have, a clear and deliberative process to change a policy. And I wanted to avoid quick changes to these protocols without ample opportunity for discussion in public. So since we have that procedure already set in policy, I think it was an easy way to do it. But if we don't want this to be part of policy, we could also set a procedure. So you have to tell us whether you think the procedures we have for policy are adequate for changing protocols, or if you want something less stringent or more stringent. And if you want it to be just the way we have procedures for our policy, you know, again, I ask, why have a two-tiered system where we keep track of these different rules in different places?
I'll be happy to weigh in on what I think the proper procedure for changing a protocol would be.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not prepared to do it at the moment,
Okay.
but you know me, I'll get my opinion in.
But this is a public meeting and we share opinions publicly. I don't want opinions shared in private by email.
I won't share it by private and email. I will wait till the next board meeting. You just
So-
asked us to share with you what you think. I
Right.
think out of the blue. I mean, I'm not prepared out of the blue to answer that. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Well, we've had this
So,
here for a while, so I don't think the issues
Holly?
are brought up out of the blue.
so actually, I mean, I have put a little bit of thought into this, and my understanding of what the protocols were was more documentation of the way that we actually are working,
Okay.
rather than a prescription for how we must,
Right.
which is more what it feels like a policy is doing. So I prefer something that is less rigid than policy, with an easier way to capture changes in the way that we may choose to be interacting.
So what if somebody says, I want to change this protocol, and three people, I guess we'd have to go on the agenda first. So the president, two other people said, we're going to change this protocol, and they vote, three people say, okay, we'll change the protocol, but we don't have that deliberative process.
Why is the discussion not deliberative?
Because you could change it, you could bring it up, it could be on the agenda, bring it up once and change it right then. Unless you're saying that to change a protocol, you have to have two readings. If you're gonna have two readings, why don't you just leave it as a policy? Because we have the process in place for policy.
I guess I don't actually see a need for multiple readings of protocols because I see them as capturing the way
So
that
they're
we...
less important than policy? Yeah.
I don't think that they're prescriptive. I think that they're reflective.
Right.
Which I think should be able to be done more quickly than...
But they're reflective of the way we
We work.
conduct business, right? So are you saying that we really don't have to follow the protocols? Because you're saying they're less important.
No, she didn't say
No,
they're less
I'm trying to
important.
understand.
They're less that, you know, when we have a policy, it's a bit, it's a little bit of a must versus a should sometimes. You know, when you have a policy, you know, if we have our facilities policy, like, and these are the rates, that's what needs to be followed unless it's voted to change those rates. This is a matter of doing business, like, in terms of, how we carry ourselves, how we believe it should be done, and and it's reflective of how we are doing things. But it is not a rule to do things. It is a suggestion and a reflection.
Then why do we
But
have
I
them at
would
all?
say-
If it's
I mean,
just
but
a
look at-
suggestion and reflection, why do we need them?
But look at
coming on-
number 3. Look at number 3 of the first section. Board members have authority for the conduct of the district schools only when acting as a body at a properly convened meeting. Board members acting as individuals have authority to speak. Sorry.
No
Have no
authority.
authority.
Board members acting as individuals have no authority to speak for or take action on behalf of the board. That's a pretty serious protocol.
But it's already in a policy.
Then why do we have the protocol?
It's actually in the law.
Right.
Right, so,
This is
you
kind
know,
of an
these,
amalgam of, it's
so
a
I don't,
reminder of things.
I just think that these protocols are important. I think they're just as important as policy. I mean, these are in the law, and a lot of these are in policy, and that's why we didn't have a set, a clear set of protocols, because it was already understood elsewhere.
But I like the
But
idea
we
that-
agreed to have these protocols, which I think is a good idea, but they're not less important
I like the
than
idea
what's
that-
in the law or what's in policy.
I like the idea of the protocols in one place, because then you can go to them. But I think to stop quick changes, the policy gives the board a more deliberative way to understand what they're changing and why they're changing it, instead of a quick way to do it.
Well, I actually think it's more fair to all board members to not have, just for instance, 3 members decide to change the protocols just at one meeting without a more deliberative process.
Well, I don't think the concern was anything happening quickly. Nothing happened.
Well,
so
you never
quickly.
know.
I don't think that's really
We
the
could be
concern
really
here.
surprised.
I don't. That's never
Well,
been. That's not my concern.
That's never been a
That's
concern.
an ours concern now.
Right.
But if we're doing this for the future,
But that
you
could
might have
happen.
another board that doesn't deliberate the way we do.
We're doing this for future boards.
This is not just us. I think we all work well together. I think we discuss things well together.
All right, we're
Like
stuck.
we're having this.
We're stuck.
Well, anyway.
Why don't we come up with some
let's make a
options for the next
decision.
meeting?
We can make a decision. It's okay if, you disagree.
You know, one option that I had thought about, and I'll just throw that out there, and we can see and whether this goes back for the discussion. Number one, I do want to get these ratified and voted on. I think it's important that we have them, and I think it's important that we have a document, and it's accessible, and it's on the website, and we can find it. I'm actually not opposed to having going through this procedure, that the policy committee can review it, they can bring it to us, and we ratify it, but it's not a policy.
Well, then the policy committee would not do that. It's not a policy.
If we choose to say whether the board and
Why don't we have a protocol committee?
the president, but if we choose, if in there, I'm just saying, call me crazy, whether you want protocols decided between the current president and vice president, review them, or I don't know why it can't be in there to say that, that it is a discussion, or you can make a proposal to the policy and then it's brought to the whole
So
board.
if you have the president, vice president discussing and modifying protocols, then it takes it even more away from the board.
No, but it still has to be voted on by the board to enact the
No,
protocol.
but have the president and vice president act as a protocol committee, not be officially a protocol committee, but act as the protocol committee.
Can I do a little research on what other people are doing and then present
Yeah,
a whole
okay.
bunch of options?
That would be
Can I
great.
do that?
Please.
Thank you.
Okay.
We're stuck on this.
Yeah, that's okay. It's okay to be stuck. Let me just do a little bit more research on this.
Okay, 3.7, policy 9050,
Okay.
sexual harassment.
These
in the
next
workplace.
two policies, these are legal changes. There's not any of these aren't changes that we decided we needed to make. These are changes we have to make to comply with the law,
Yeah.
which is why they're the first reading and the adoption and waiving the second reading and adoption all at one time. So,
I move we adopt them.
No, we
Thank
have
you.
to
Hold on,
discuss.
let's read 'em. What were the changes, Christine?
oh,
9050.
I could say very quickly, if you can,
gosh.
because I have, it's, replaces a current 9050
Right.
based on a new labor and human rights law.
Right, new federal law.
It's changed to cover other people in the workplace, so it covers not just staff, but interns, part-time seasonal workers, vendors, consultants, and other people who come to work in the district. This is based on a NISBA model.
And I'll talk
It
about
covers reporting requirements, investigations that have to take place within 30 days. It includes actions against supervisors who knowingly allow behavior that's covered here. It covers harassment outside of the workplace that affects employees. It covers retaliation, and it provides for no binding arbitration requirements in future contracts.
And then in terms of charging school meals, it's about new meal shaming language that needs to go
Right.
in there.
That's
which
the
is
other-
nev-
yeah,
which
the
is not
other
a problem
policy.
here, but
Right.
obviously we have to have
I
language.
withdraw
in
my
there.
motion.
Okay.
We didn't move yet. Okay. So I have a motion to accept item 3.8 as is for first reading and adoption.
Wait, 3.7?
3.7, I'm sorry.
I'll move 3.7.
Pardon me?
I will second.
To waive the second reading and adopt.
Okay. I move that we waive.
Hold on, just so everyone, we put the resolution right underneath the policy, just so it was
Okay.
very clear on both of them.
So, 3.7. So it's be it resolved, the Board of Education hereby waives the second reading of policy 9050, sexual harassment in the workplace, and be it further resolved that upon the first reading of this policy, as presented at this meeting. The Board of Education hereby adopts policy 9050, sexual harassment in the workplace. Do I have a motion to accept those two resolutions?
I will. oh,
Go ahead, go ahead.
Okay, I move.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All right, we got one passed. 3.7. 3.8. Be resolved, the Board of Education hereby waives the second reading of policy 5028, charging school meals, and be it further resolved that upon the first reading of this policy as presented at this meeting, the Board of Education hereby adopts policy 5028, charging school meals. Christine, anything we really need?
No, it's
No?
just about meal
It's-
shaming, and we would never do
Meal
some of
shaming.
what the language in there tries to
Okay.
protect kids from.
Great.
So what was changed was what?
Basically, it's the training part.
Which one?
I think the training of the staff that we talked about, the serve.
That one was like red line. There was
Right, and
a-
then we have
there
to
was
make
something.
sure that we're
Yeah, where
making
is the
sure our
redlining
staff
here?
knows how they are supposed to act when
Right.
kids are.
Oh, just that will be provided
yeah.
training has been stricken? That's it?
But if we have other language in there, I think.
The last sentence.
We didn't get the red line version.
Last sentence.
I would also like the red line version. But okay,
So it's,
all right.
will be provided with training. So why are we taking and will be provided with training out?
Sorry, what?
It says, and will be provided with training to ensure.
It's
That's stricken.
It says under this
Where-
policy will be trained on the provisions. It's just in a different part of that sentence.
And
Where
will
are you
not be
reading? I'm
provided.
sorry, where
What-
are you reading?
Oh, but billing problem.
It's in the, it's in the front
Will
end.
be trained, I got it.
Got
So-
it?
So we change, all we're doing is
Can
changing
you
the
tell me where we
language.
are in the document?
We're on
Under
the-
notification, Vicki.
Okay.
Building principals working with food service director will ensure that all district and food service staff with responsibility under this policy will be trained on provisions, and then just look at it, and will not be trained, and will be provided with training. So the language is just to make it clear, more
Right.
clear.
Oh, okay. All right.
What happened is that this is a new policy and this is a new law, and every school district had to adopt this, and which the board approved it, adopted, I think in June, and then after that, I had 30 days to submit it to SED for reviews, which I did, and then they came back with comments, and so we incorporated all their comments.
Okay. So can I get a motion to approve 3.8, the resolutions for policy 5028?
I'll move 3.8.
I'll second
We're-
3.
Well, we're waiving the second reading.
No,
We read that.
we
Did we
read
do
that.
that?
We're,
I'm sorry.
we're
Okay.
waiving the second reading.
Sorry, did we
Yes.
vote on waiving? or-
Which says, it's one resolution, be it resolved, the Board of Education hereby waives the second reading of the policy, and further it resolved that the first reading of the policy is presented.
Okay, sorry. Yep.
So I'll second item 3.8. Any more additional discussion? All in favor? Aye.
I recommend
Three.
4.1 instructional as presented.
I will
Couldn't do that
accept-
fast enough.
I will accept the superintendent's recommendation for item 4.1. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I recommend 4.2 non-instructional as presented.
I will accept the superintendent's recommendation of 4.2. May I have a second?
I second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
5.1 CSE summaries as reported to the board on December 5th, 2018. May I have
I
a
move
motion?
item 5.1.
A second?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Item 5.2 is request, it's a union, Austin Union Free School District has requested Chappaqua District to approve the participation of 2 of their students on the ski team to train and participate along with Chappaqua Central School District. We've passed this, I think, every year for the last
Previously,
3 or
yeah.
4 years, and nothing's changed that I can see. It's all in here. I mean, I think it's great for our kids, it's great for Austin School District, and it doesn't cost us anything, and we're covered insurance-wise and everything else, so. The entire recommendation is in the minutes, but do I have a motion for 5.2?
I'll move 5.2.
Do I have a second for 5.2?
I second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
5.3, be it resolved, the Board of Education approves the Chappaqua School Foundation to grant gift for hands-on history materials contained in sixth grade Ancient Civilizations Social Studies curriculum in the amount of $1,048.30, submitted by Robert E. Bell School teacher Miriam Longobardi. I will move 5.3. Do I have a second?
I want to move.
Pardon me?
As CSF liaison. I'll second. It's okay.
Okay.
No, I'm just kidding. I'll second.
Any discussion?
Then asking, when did Miriam Longobardi move to Bell?
This year.
Okay. I was going to say she's been at Roaringburg forever. Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item 5.4, whereas the district owns attached list of items that are no longer useful or necessary for the school district purpose of no value to the school district. I looked at 5.4. There's some interesting things there, but nothing that we can
I'm
use.
just happy I'm not on the
Giant
list once again.
Right. Do I have a motion for 5.4?
I move 5.4.
Do I have a second for 5.4?
I second.
Any discussion? Basically, we're getting rid of any kind of obsolete equipment that has no value to the school district in a prudent manner with accordance to the law. All in favor?
Aye.
Item 5.5, be it resolved, the Board of Education approves agreement for services for Team Moljo for professional development. Is that correct?
Yes.
Moljo. For professional training, strength and conditioning in the amount of $1,000 during the 2018-2019 school year, and authorizes the board president to execute this agreement.
I thought that said mojito when I first read it.
That's what I did too.
I'll move 5.5.
Do I have a second for 5.5?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
5.6, be resolved, the Board of Education approves an agreement for services with Angela Stockman for professional development in the amount of $12,000 during the 2019-2020 school year, and authorizes the board president to execute this agreement. I'll move item 5.6. Do I have a second?
Second. Oh,
Any discussion?
Why is it 2019, 2020?
Is it incorrect?
Let me check the attached contract. We have the contract in the supporting document.
It's 2018, 2019.
We have to do as amended.
Yeah.
We have to amend it. Thank you, Jane.
do we have to retract? Did we do motion?
So we have to withdraw the motion and then do
Withdraw.
a new motion.
Withdraw and then pass as amended, right?
So can I have a withdrawal of that motion?
I move that we withdraw the motion.
Do we have to vote on that? No, okay. What?
Second.
I'll second.
All in favor of withdrawing the motion?
Aye.
I, based on the, as amended, we'd like to change this from 2018 to 2019. Do I have a motion to approve 5.6 as amended?
So moved.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Be resolved, I have a motion for 5.7, be resolved, the Board of Education hereby ratifies the terms of a supplemental SMA, supplemental memorandum of agreement with Chappaqua Administrators Association regarding non-resident faculty children dated December 5th, 2018, as presented to the board at this meeting. A copy of said supplemental memorandum of agreement shall be incorporated by reference within the meetings of this meeting.
I move 5.7.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Christine, you want to just give us a quick rundown on this, of why we're doing this?
Oh, so we talked about this. This is a SMOA that gives language so the administrators can bring their children to the district. They currently don't have that language in the contract. And there was a suggestion to add some additional language that was embedded into the document as per the board's request. So it
Okay.
should satisfy all of the concerns that you expressed regarding it.
Great, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Item 5.8. Be resolved, the Board of Education approves an agreement with KG&D Architects dated November 12th, 2018, in the amount of $43,640, approval and design, and $23,500 bidding, construction, administration, for the Robert E. Bell School cafeteria renovations and authorizes the board president to execute this agreement. Do I have a motion for 5.8?
I'll move 5.8.
Do I have a second?
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Item 5.9, be resolved, the Board of Education approves an anonymous gift of 30 Cascade lacrosse helmets at $220 per helmet, plus $15 for decals per helmet to the Horace Greeley High School varsity lacrosse program for the 2019 lacrosse season.
I move item 5.9.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have some discussion here. So I guess the question is, why is it not $235? It's
What?
220 plus 15 is that issue?
I just know that the way they're being charged is $220 for the helmet and then $15 for the decal.
And the other thing, it says for the 2019 lacrosse season. What about 2020 and further on?
Generally, helmets like that,
Last.
they either not be used or they have to go out and be reconditioned. There's all sorts of issues with them in terms of both sanitary and strength and whatnot. I don't know the right words. So they're donating for now. If we want to use them, they're not taking them back. Let's put it
Right.
down.
No, so basically from a safety issue, possibly, that they're used for a season, then they go again?
It's possible.
It's
But
a
they're-
very generous gift.
So they're not, it's not like you buy, I don't know, something that lasts for a long time. These things have to be.
If I don't know what they plan on giving them to the players at the end of the year or whatnot, but if you owned your own lacrosse helmet, you can use it until it's no longer usable, I guess. So in some cases, that could be 2 or 3 years. I mean, if you got beaten on your head, it might be a week, you know. But the general length of time for the district lacrosse helmet, I believe, is 1 or 2 years.
Okay. Just wondering why it was for a specific season. Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much for the wonderful anonymous gift of these helmets.
I believe the reason it says 2019 lacrosse season is because the last time they did this, it used whatever year that season was, and they just changed the number. But
Okay.
I could be wrong about that.
Okay. We have an addendum on our agenda for 5.10. So, let me get to this. I'm not going to read the entire addendum because it's quite long. But basically, we discussed this when Joe Grimundo was here earlier. This is emergency repair at the steam line and return line. And again, the detail are in the minutes. It's something that we need to do based on school law. And I have a motion for 5.10.
I'll move 5.10.
Do I have a second for 5.10?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Okay, so this is an emergency repair
Right.
based on the steam leak.
Yep.
Is there anything in the resolution that needs to be changed based on what Joe reported to us at the meeting? Based on the fact that it was determined where the source of the leak is?
No.
Okay.
Okay. All in favor?
This is a hot item.
Oh my God, we're getting punchy.
It's getting late.
Get late.
Okay.
Sorry.
Wait, we have to vote. We didn't vote.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye. Okay, 6, I'd like to take 6.1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. These are change acknowledgements.
Yes.
I will move 6.1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. I will acknowledge that these changes are from the superintendent and are within our policy or what we're supposed to do.
I will acknowledge that as well.
So we have an acknowledgement and a second acknowledgement.
No, I am the second acknowledgement.
Do we have to vote on
I
acknowledgement?
don't think there's a second.
Yeah, we don't have to vote?
We do.
We do.
We're always
All in
going to
favor
ask.
of
But
it?
my only question is, I just did a quick thing about Field C, 6.6 and 6.7. You know, that's a big chunk of change. So was that anticipated, or like it's a change order for that, or this was all unanticipated? That was my only question.
Unanticipated, but we feel that we need to do it.
Because what has happened is the traffic now going around the C field is causing the foot traffic is causing issues, right?
Okay.
Getting mud spots.
Right.
People are jumping over the metal rail.
Right.
So we have to kind of help with the pattern of where people, how they're crossing our fields.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right.
I've seen it, like if you
No,
walk.
I know, it's I just didn't
Yeah.
know if we had budgeted for that. It just was a lot to be unanticipated.
It's sort of like, you're on a college campus and you have the path that goes this way,
No,
and everyone
I-
cuts that
I've
way.
moved
No, a
off
lot of
many
colleges
shoe
will
from
wait
that
and
area,
not put
so-
in the sidewalk
And then
until
put
they
new
see where the
sidewalks
students
in,
use
right.
it.
Right.
And then
Because
they say,
kids will
okay,
go,
well,
the
that's fine.
path
Okay,
that
no,
leads
I
to
got
the-
you. That was
Okay,
just my
all in
question.
favor
Okay.
all in favor of the acknowledgement? Aye.
Aye.
I acknowledge it.
Financial reports, can I have a motion to accept 7.1, the audit claims order report?
I move 7.1.
Or October 2018, I have a second.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, our next future meeting will be Wednesday, our notice future meeting will be January 9th, 2019, 7:30 PM for a budget preview right here at the Horace Greeley High School Academic Commons. The meeting after that is Wednesday, January 23rd, 2019, 7:30 PM at it's a Roaring Brook student presentation, again, the high school, Horace Greeley High School Academic Commons. As we mentioned earlier in the meeting, we will probably have,
We will have
a meeting,
a budget for,
facilities.
facilities forum next Wednesday at 7:30 here, followed by a special board meeting,
Which will be noticed.
which will be noticed at 8:30.
Great.
I also wanted to wish everyone a happy holiday, and also welcome our Seven Bridges principal, Dr. Joe Mazza, who will be starting here on Monday.
Wow,
Great.
okay,
So we have the full team.
excellent.
Okay. Adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting at 10:23 PM?
I so move.
I will second.
Any additional discussion? All in favor?
Aye. Nighty night, everybody.
Thank you,
Is that a
Warren.
long one?